So we'll go ahead and get started on no increases and stuff like that.
Right.
You know?
Talbot County Sanitary District, rate increase in the middle of an election year.
Exactly,
Sorry.
that's really gonna help me, right? Thank you. Me and
yeah.
me and the vice president, it's really gonna help us.
Well, you know, if you could just contribute from your campaign fund to back.
That's exactly right.
To raise
Yeah,
rates.
that's right. That's exactly right. I'll do it if you do it.
Well, first off, we did have a meeting back, I think it's in September, October of last year, 2021.
Yep,
We were
yep.
working with North Park Environment on basically, the borrowing for the county, primarily for the sewer extensions and the pump station that are identified in Resolution 235, and then we also had discussions as it relates to Resolution 250. So with that, MDE highlighted that, MDE noted that we needed to have, at a bare minimum, a debt ratio of 1. So through that, MDE, through their review, established that to meet that debt ratio of 1, MDE would have to raise the rates $400 per year. So that's basically what we looked at from that is, just looked at some, I guess, scenarios, but at the same time, MDE also understood that that's probably a heavy lift to go $400 in 1 year. Unfortunately, though, when we look back, from let's say October of last year, and with now the issue with salaries, especially within the sanitary district, keeping staff, we are currently down three positions. So, and what has happened in the last, let's say, 6 months or so. Every time we hire somebody, we're usually bringing them in at about $35,000, and they're leaving in about 2 months, and they're going somewhere else. So like I said, we currently are at about 3 positions down, and I've got 2 people right now, Russell and Chris Hood, that are pretty much working almost 24/7. So if something breaks, we're dependent upon them being out there all the time.
So you're looking at the figures as operation and maintenance costs plus capital debt costs, and maybe something else in there to come up with what the rate needs to be. What is MDE looking at differently that
They're looking at the same things we are.
Same things.
Yeah, they're looking at the same stuff. They actually grab our budgets and whatnot, so they're looking at the same numbers.
And debt ratio of 1.0 simply means that we're looking to, this is supposed to be break-even operation.
And correct, and that's where MDEs, they like to see it even better than that, so they like to see it better than a 1.
Okay.
Better than 1. I think they were looking at 1.2 or something, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's not right.
1.2, so they would prefer you to be at 1.2, but they would go at 1.0 is what
Okay.
they're willing to go at.
And can I interject?
Sure.
here? And so the reason that it's important that we get to this debt ratio is because MDE said that they would no longer.
Well, we wouldn't qualify for the loans.
Yes.
Wouldn't qualify for the loans through them if we didn't meet that debt ratio. So as we're looking to try and borrow money for Resolution 235, the sewer extensions, as well as Resolution 250, if we're not meeting that debt ratio of minimum of 1, we can't get the loans.
What is that a ratio of? Is that the capital value divided by our?
MDE is not real clear on how they come up with this debt ratio. I believe it's associated with what you're paying on your debts in relationship to what your income is.
Yes.
So I believe that's what they're looking
Okay.
at. So there's a silver lining down the road, but it's down the road. So let me just say that. I mean, one of the things that, with this debt ratio, and that's what I try to highlight here, is really, the county borrowed money for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades back in 2008 and ultimately did pump station work back in 2005. So right now, we're looking at this pump stations, that debt will actually be paid off as of 2025, February 2025. The wastewater treatment plant, that debt we're looking at being paid off basically in 2027. Looking at this now, one of the things that's kind of unique, going through the amortization tables for MDE, it's not a simple little payment scheme. It doesn't always equal the same each fiscal year. But so I averaged what we did for the St. Michael's pump stations. But ultimately, like for the pump stations, we currently, our balance as of February this year was $282,680. So, we should have that paid off, like I said, by next year. And then with that, the debt for the Region 2 wastewater treatment plant is $450,000. That's shared amongst Unionville, Twinsville, Scottville, Royal Oak, Newman, Bellevue, St. Michael's, as well as Martingham. And the balance as of February is $2,109,700, let's say $37 is what our balance is on that. And then ultimately with that, we've also done the collection system improvements. We have a rural development loan, that's $85,000. In addition to that loan, we also have the Unionville, Twinsville, Cotterville loan that was part of the FHA when they brought sewer out to that. So that should be getting paid off hopefully next year is what, I guess the game plan would be, is hopefully by next year, as well as Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue. So both those would probably be 30-year loans, be paid off in 2022.
Can I ask you a question? First of all, we want to welcome Jean.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, apologize, I
Yeah,
apologize.
Yeah, so you want to explain her job to everybody?
Well, we're still defining it for her.
Everything?
Everything as required.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, so we want to welcome you, and really appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, and I apologize, Ms. Callahan.
No problem.
I have also,
Yep.
Russell Leash, he's
Yep.
our environmental manager. He runs all of us
Good.
operations
That's
for us
great.
down at St.
That's
Michael's,
great.
as well as Tillman and whatnot, and
Yeah.
the collection systems and.
Sure.
But yeah, so ultimately,
Okay, well, thank you.
No,
So-
let me capitalize on that. because,
Yes.
I mean, it is exciting to have Jean here.
It is.
She has a lot of background when it comes to working with Ray,
Mhm.
number one, and number two, she has a working knowledge of the wastewater treatment system, and she's dependent on it for some time.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate to have her here, and I think that council knows, as you approved it, that our commitment to our sewer system is only growing. And that dotting the i's and crossing the t's and making sure we're strategic in our planning efforts is something that she'll be adding to the team. So she'll be working with Ray to just kind of make sure that, we do that when it comes to forecasting the future and making sure we're operating like we need to as a utility.
Right.
Because in essence, it is a utility, so we're fortunate to have gotten her,
We're
so
very fortunate.
thank you to council for approving it.
Yep. Okay, so thank you. So the UTMC and the RONB.
Correct.
Those two line items so does it help? Because, don't take this the wrong way, they're not necessarily big numbers per year, so one's maybe you get it paid off and the other one you get it paid. Does that help the ratio if council said, hey, let's pay those two off?
and it would be one of the sanitary districts. I mean,
Yeah.
it might, it would probably, because you're no longer carrying that into the future, but it's not, like you said, it's not a big hit. And-
It was just standing out. to
Right,
me.
no, I agree.
A little-
The users pay that though.
Right.
Not the county. Not the county.
Users pay
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But, you have to also remember that the general fund has been putting money into the utilities for some time.
So how do we obviously we're keeping track of it, how does that finally get paid back?
We're gonna have, by raising the rates, and then ultimately the
So
users
this
and
is a
generating.
Right.
But that's another complexity when we talk about, although we're paying this off, we still have got to try to stop any funneling in of general fund dollars first.
Yeah.
And then what do we need to do to recover at some point?
Right.
That's another piece of the conversation. So kind of
Okay.
And then so we have these existing debts that we have here, and then for the future, what we do have is we're gonna have the belt filter press, we have the sewer collection system we're working on right now in St. Michael's, which is our our second loan with rural development. And then ultimately, again, these two debts would be, or actually the St. Michael's debt's gonna be St. Michael's. Then ultimately, the belt filter press would be split out between all the 4 districts. And then the Royal Oak Pump Station, which is really in critical situation right now for us. This is assuming a debt load right now, I think of about $2 million. We are trying to work with MDE on grant funding on that, so this is kind of the worst-case scenarios here. So hopefully we can get additional, grant money and drop that number down a little bit, but there's still going to be a number there. And then that Royal Oak pump station is going to have to be paid for by the users of that station. Ultimately, it's going to be Unionville, Twinsville, Scottsville, Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue, and all the new users that are brought in through Resolution 235 have paid for that debt service. In addition to that, we're also got the Resolution 235 sewer extensions coming out. So those sewer extensions coming out for our infrastructure in 33 or Unionville Road, that will go out, and then that's going to be paid for by those users as well. So that's the debt service what we're looking at for Resolution 235. And then for Resolution 250, that's the sewer line that's coming out, let's say Church Neck Road, goes down to Mount Pleasant, then goes underneath Broad Creek, and then heads down to Bosman and Nevitt. And that's basically, I'm assuming $15 million is the debt service, and that would be paid for by those users, or, by those properties down there. There's 610 properties in the Resolution 250 area, and ultimately in Resolution 235, I think it's roughly about 300 more properties to get sewer to. With that, I'm sorry.
635 of 250?
I'm sorry, it was, we have roughly about 300, 250 was 610 EDUs.
And how many for 235?
235 was originally 354, and we've connected about 54 of those properties at this point, so roughly about 300 more remaining. The bad news on this is that Resolution 235, all 300 of those are not going into the pump station. It might be, let's say, 185 are going to the pump station. The other, let's say, 15 or 20 are in the Deepwater Point, Yacht Club Road, as well as Rose Range Road area. So those are the other properties. They're part of Resolution 235, but they're not using that station. Again, I think when we're looking as part of this, we not only have the debt service, but we also have the salaries. So one of the things that we have identified is, again, we have right now within our personnel, we've got 3 vacancies. As we just mentioned, we currently have, we've hired people on at $35,000, and they leave in a couple months. So what we're trying to do is raise the salaries. But as we do that, that's just going to add more costs, and then it means we've got to raise the rates. So that's the other component we're up against.
Yeah, but we can't have high turnover there. Understaffing in an area like this is just asking for trouble, and those are bigger costs down the road.
And to your point, we're probably not, we're doing critical maintenance, we're not doing any preventative maintenance. So we're responding to problems more than being preventative.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where we're at today.
That's not where we want to be.
No. But, at the same time, we're also looking at and working on, with Resolution 235 and 250, we're looking at adding up to 100 new connections. In addition to that, what's that? Yeah, 1,000. In addition to that, we are currently working on a couple of projects. We have a project down in Bellevue that may happen this fiscal year, may happen next fiscal year, which would add another probably 15 new houses in. In addition, we have a couple of other spots we're working on as trying to bring in a few more units as well. So we are trying to generate new connections as we can, as fast as we can.
And I presume your capacity is somewhere north of that 1,000?
We are right now, capacity-wise, we're roughly about 300 to 330,000 gallons per day out of a 660 plant. Typically, what we'll find is that with MDE and us kind of battle this. MDE says we're supposed to be using 250 gallons per house, so that means 250,000 gallons. Technically, we only see 114 gallons per house, and we use 125 or half of that. So really connecting 1,000 houses is 125,000, so we're well under capacity.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
that's been an ongoing battle between us and MDE. The other component that we have is, when we're looking at this, is equipment replacement. We've got the replacement within the wastewater treatment plants we got to start planning for. We've got, pump stations, so we're working on, trying to do some critical, Russell's, I guess, provided some major maintenance items for that we're going to have to look at within the next 5 years. So those are the things we've been doing. One of the things that's also happening to us is we're starting to see increases in costs associated with chemicals, as well as transportation. And as we add these more units, There's going to be more transportation out. We'll hopefully be able to hire more people too to help us with getting out to those. And then really the bigger one is right now, because we are not generating, let's say, a profit per se, we're not generating any revenue for a repair and replacement fund. That repair and replacement fund is a fund that, as each year we've collected money, that money comes in, that then basically goes into our repair and replacement fund. So if we had a critical failure, we could go to that fund rather than to the general fund per se. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Question. Does every utility customer pay the exact same amount per
No.
year?
No.
And so the lowest is what jurisdiction and how much is that a year, and then the highest?
Right now, Unionville, Tinsmith, Cottonville, Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue are paying the same. They're paying currently $660 a year. So, and then ultimately with that, you have St. Michael's. They're well, actually, I should go back. Tillman's paying the lowest. I think they're paying about $355 a year, if I'm not mistaken. And then you go Unionville, Tinsmith, Cottonville at $660, and then St. Michael's is paying $730, and then I believe, $730, and I think Martingham's paying $750 a year. So that it isn't, it is, yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And so is the proposal though to go up the same for everybody or proportionate?
I was going up 400 for everybody, so it wouldn't standard, we wouldn't have a standard rate across the board.
So Tillman's going to go from
To-
more than double, and then the others are only going to.
Well, in Tillman, I was proposing not really going and hitting them with 400 or 3. What I was proposing for Tillman was actually $200. Hitting the other areas this fiscal year with $300. Then leaving the door open to possibly having another rate increase next year. So
Well, presumably, we've got more investment coming into Tillman in the near future, and their rates are going to have to reflect that when the investment hits.
Correct. And then what was kind of walked through, we talked about that, but then this is kind of, this is what I try to do here with these tables is show you kind of, I guess what our expenses and revenues are for each one. And really, where we have red, that's where we're basically in the red. Literally in the red. What we find is we don't really get into the black per se, and with all of these, we're having to have sewer connections to get us in the black. So ultimately, the sewer connections, the $300 is where we're starting to get ourselves into the black, assuming 10 connections for that year. So that's, what I've done is for each one of those, assume 10 connections, and that's how we got into the black. So that was basically Unionville, Tinsmith, Cottonville, Royal Oak, Newcomb, Bellevue, and St. Michael's. It also includes the additional debt that we're talking about with the projects that are currently approved at this point. I'm sorry.
And so you mentioned that you have aging infrastructure, and so it's one of the things that you plan to do is to look out into the future at when you might need to replace things and figure out what your profit or loss would be over time.
Right. And we're working on that. I think we've just, right now, we've got, I think, in Russell and Gene were working on that. I think Gene had identified about $1.7 million at this point, something that we're looking at, but that was only over the next 5 years. So those are the things we're looking at. Yes, sir.
Does the rate increase also include the salary increases for the 3 bodies?
Yes, sir. Yes. And the salary bump up, yes, it
Salary
does.
bump up,
Yes.
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 So just a simple question. So the pay structure that people pay, did they pay quarterly?
Correct, yes.
So would that quarterly be, let's just say it's 400, does that break up into?
My
100,
recommendation, the
100,
problem we're
100.
running into is you're paying $600 right now.
Okay.
That's right now billed on a quarterly basis. I think it's like 160 something or 170 or a quarter. As we get closer to $1,000, my recommendation would be to go to
Monthly.
monthly, because it's going to be a heavy hit.
And so we
Yep.
do bill on a quarterly basis, but customers do have the opportunity to pay however they want. So
Right.
they can pay monthly or every week if they want to.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was just kind of thinking that 400 would be sort of
Yeah.
distributed however.
Right, right. And my recommendation would be, again, you know, we're starting to get almost at $1,200 a year at this point. It's just, you know, for a family, you know, if you're getting hit with a quarterly bill, that's gonna be $300 for that during that month. It'll probably be easier to pay $100 a month than it would be to wait each quarter for $300 hit.
So those,
Yeah, just thinking through that.
so as far as like budget billing, so all those calls go to your department then?
Yes.
But someone wants to set up a budget billing plan or a monthly plan as opposed to a quarterly plan, you all set that up?
We've already informed customers that they can pay less than a quarterly bill. It's on the bill.
Is there an auto pay option? So I mean, can they just set it up and say, you know, take $100 out a month, or no?
I have to check.
I don't think we do. I don't think we have an auto pay option.
21st century, man. We
What's
talk
that?
about 21st
I know, I
century.
don't disagree with you. It'd be a good thing to have. I think it would be an automatic draw.
All you have to do is your list.
Oh, I agree.
So Corey, just to clarify something you brought up a moment ago. So the money for the additional 3 personnel and the increase in order to remain competitive and retain the people that we have is built into this for
Right.
next fiscal year. But we're going to need to address that immediately. I want to talk to council about that for the retained side of that.
Right.
So I'm going to need your support to be able to do that.
And then again, for, I guess, for Martingham and then ultimately Tillman, you know, looked at it, again, I think for Region 2, they're looking at $300 a year for all those that are using the Region 2 wastewater treatment plant. Tillman, you know, right now, again, the one thing that is kind of setting us off is that we have a capital expense for a new truck in there, so that's, you know, a little bit higher, but ultimately I was looking at a $200 rate increase there. We are looking at some point in the future of moving towards ENR, and that is going to result in a cost, you know, if we're starting to see the price tag go up per month.
So is the reason that Tillman is so much less because of the type of wastewater treatment plant that it is?
Yeah, so it's a lagoon process that ultimately, there's some minimal costs on the chemicals, there's minimal costs on electricity, whereas we probably have a significant amount of chemical costs and electrical costs at St. Michael's than we do at Tillman.
And presumably you've got a lot less debt you're paying off.
We
Tillman.
actually have no debt in Tillman at this
Yeah,
point. in
well, that
time.
explains it.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things we're looking at.
It's a threat of flooding, that's all.
It is, and that's to your point, and that, you know, to 21st century, the sea level rise is a big concern for us right now, and we are talking to MDE about that as well. So, you know, I think, you know, as we're starting to see, you know, moving these rates up, Tillman just figured it's better to bring them on now and start raising their rates, you know.
But we're not looking to upgrade that plant. That's the one you're going to pipe down to St. Michael's, right?
That's correct, and we're working with MDE on the preliminary engineering report as we speak, so
But they'd
that's-
still be a separate district, they'd still have that
Yes.
cost of that pipe
Yes.
from Tillman to St. Michael's calculated into their bills
Yes.
in the future.
And new pump station?
Yes,
And the pump station.
yes, yeah.
And extension to Barnack.
And Barnett.
Yes, yes. You guys are good, you got it all.
Looking at these figures, you're figuring with 8.5 new connections projected per year, projected for Tillman, that you can eke out get us in the black by $1,700 a year. That looks razor thin.
It is razor thin. I mean, it is razor thin. But I will say, you know, if we go to $300, you know, and again, this is, you know, try. I know it's, and Mrs. Price is right. I mean, you're almost doubling it when you go to $300. But you know, if we're going $300 across the board, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on that. I mean, it's a hit either way. So, but that's I mean, I don't disagree with that position, you know, but.
Go ahead.
I still think we need to look forward.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about setting rates for fiscal year '23. The rate increase is pretty steep, so we need to feel comfortable that that rate increase
Sufficient.
is sufficient going forward, well, for at least some period of time.
If you pulled
That's
all
what
of
I
the
was doing.
salaries out,
That's what I
how
was
would you look then?
The salaries?
Yes.
I I would probably say the salaries are probably they're probably as significant as the debt service. I mean, I would probably say the salaries are probably in the same range of the debt service for us.
Because the reason I ask about that is I've been pushing, I want somebody, I would like to see somebody on the county staff who's monitoring all the different wastewater treatment facilities that we have in the county. Giving the update to the council, reporting on the county website. And I see that person as being a benefit to the community, not just to the end users, as well as the information that you provide to us, as well as how well you work with the council when we're doing Lakeside, that's gonna be into the traps income. You've spent a tremendous amount of time helping me understand that. A lot of your billable hours have helped the council with that.
Now, there is a unique thing. I am DPW. I'm actually I'm not billed against the sanitary district, so I am Department of Public Works. I seem to spend a lot of time over there, but so I could facilitate that, potentially hire somebody if we can, and carry that forward, maybe on the public works side, out of the general fund side, more so, because that's more global than it would be, let's say, specific to the sanitary district.
But I think, we have a position for sanitary engineer, we have a difficult time filling that.
Right.
But I think that we want to try to achieve that goal is to get a sanitary engineer to be able to do a lot of detailed work for REG. I mean, this is only a growing system, and we need to get better at it and have those resources available. And in that position particularly, the gentleman is going to be retiring, and we're going to try to retain his service.
Right.
Terry, part-time.
Right.
Going forward. And of course, having Gene available to have real-time information reporting-wise will be helpful as well.
Right, and could you,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
could you show me, I don't know whether you have it at your fingertips, what Eastern Utility, what their what their rate is for a comparable EU?
I can honestly tell you right now, because I live in Easton, and I'm trying to remember the bill.
But that's all based on
It's,
usage,
it's,
it's not
it's
flat
based on
rate.
water, it's based on water, and so I would say you're probably in the we're gonna be more expensive, I hate to tell you that, than Eastern Utilities. I think if you looked at it from a wastewater perspective in comparison to our wastewater billing, because we're fixed rates, we're probably more closer to 70 to 80, 100, in that range. They may be more in the 70 range, or it's not as much, because it's all built on water, and water, I would say, if you were to assume they're paying $80, I think it was probably water's included in that. So that's why it's hard to say what it really. I can get you that. I can get you that information.
I'm just trying to get in my head we're using the E&R system at Region 2. They're using the E&R system at Easton. And if the flows, if the flows are the same to you, the flows are the same, what would that rate look like?
Well,
I know they still have debt service on their facility.
Their flows are probably around 2 million gallons a day. We're probably in the neighborhood of about 300,000. So I think they have close to 15,000 users in Easton.
Much bigger system.
Because everything is going into that one system.
Right.
And they're metered.
Yes.
Every customer's metered.
On the
for
water side.
On the water side,
Right.
so, and whereas we've got no metering, so we just bill a
Flat rate.
EDU.
We do a flat rate billing for, because we have wells. So
Well,
we can't,
right.
so.
Alright.
Now, we did look, when I first came on board, we did look at trying to do it off of water, but the problem we run into is the water meters are in St. Michael's, then you still have to have a fixed rate out into the county anyway, so, and it was gonna be a battle trying to convince the restaurants and all the other businesses of, we're gonna have to change the rate structure here, guys, and.
Plus, it has to travel a lot further here at the county. Easton's all compact. They have a lot of
Correct.
users and it's all compact, where we've got to have pump stations and move it here, there, and
Except inside the town of St. Michael's.
Almost like
Yeah.
that's a nice idea.
It can be a good idea as long as you don't have treatment plants all over the place. But yeah. But and again, I think I was mistaken. I apologize. I indicated Martingham. I think was like 750. They're 730. St. Michael's, I thought was 730, I think they're 710. So that's their current rate today. So what we're proposing, I think if we go 300 hours, right now you've got two of your systems are going to be paying over $1,000 a year, and then the other three, and Tillman is going to be 720. So they'd be right about where St. Michael's is today. So if you gave them a $200 increase, rate increase. If you went to $300, then Tillman would probably be about 820, so that would probably raise them up another, let's say, almost 40 some odd percent, 48% maybe. So that's kind of, and then again, what I showed here was, what the billing would be on a quarterly basis versus what the billing would be on a monthly basis. So, like I said, we're getting real close to that $100 a month scenario, so I would probably, whereas, as I said, I think, if you compared us to Easton, they're probably in the $80, but that's water included in that. Don't know if we have anything else, that's it. Any questions, I guess? I mean, I know it's not a.
So with this, if the county general fund has been subsidizing each of these to a more or less degree, and I presume maybe some of these, maybe not so much, and some of these quite a bit, these sewer districts, if we're going to think about replenishing the general fund from this, what's the payback period? We've been doing this kind of calculation with the
Okay. Yeah.
with the
Right.
repurposing center.
Right.
And how long does it take actually to pay back?
And I think that's where, I come back to the 1,000 units roughly. We're looking at a capital charge of $12,000. So that would generate about $12 million. So let's say, if we could get that sewer out, we've connected, and we got $9 million was generated, let's say with 75% of that, or 750 connections. That would generate cash for you that could then be used to pay down your debt and pay hopefully the county off, and then put some of that money in reserve.
Okay.
And then with that, now, I forgot what our rates were, but.
And so these new rates are set to take that into account, that fund replenishment?
As I showed here, I apologize, I gotta go back.
Yeah, on those tables.
These here, we're showing just 120,000, that's 10 connections per service area. So if we were to get resolution
I see.
235,
I see.
and they came in, and we've been trying, I hate to say this, for the last 2 or 3 years now, trying to get resolution 235 approved and out the door, we're talking, 100 of those would be $1.2 million. Right now, we're just hand-filling these in with 120,000. 3 of them would be 300 would be $3.6 million. So that's where, if we can get those sewer connections moving and out the door, that capital charge that comes in would then be cashed to the sanitary district that can pay off the county and hopefully pay off the debt.
So if you ever got the 1,000 connections, is there any chance that the rate would someday go down?
That would have to be evaluated, yes.
But
I
it's
mean,
possible.
it's possible, but I
Once you
think
get
you'd
up
have to
there.
evaluate it.
Goal.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I mean, the other thing I would say too, again, you're looking at, the 1,000 houses is the
That-
easy number to
That
look at.
presumes that the infrastructure holds up and you never need to
Well,
reinvest in it.
Yeah, and then ultimately, if you're looking at 1,000 houses, and you got a rate of $1,000 a year, so that would be an additional $1 million of O&M costs, or O&M revenue coming in too.
Perhaps
So-
it's, I'm just concerned that the 300, I think the word that Pete used was razor thin. Looking at if you go to 300 for Unionville's, Tunis Mills and Copperville, $5,000. It would be your profit. If we did the same thing for Royal Oak, Newfoundland, Bellevue, it's 700.
Mhm.
I mean, St. Michael's 38,000, sorry. No, I got 27,000. still too close.
It is, but I was, again, looking at it from the user's perspective, $300 or, 300 and 400, for us, it may not be a whole lot, and another $100, but, these guys are, let's say a business who's coming out or been struggling for the last couple of years, now is gonna get hit with a $400 rate increase, you all probably know better than I, then, that's good, bad, or ugly.
I just think at 300, you're gonna be coming back again.
Oh, I know I hate to say that. I mean, I think at 300, we will be back next year.
Punch me in the nose once, then punch me in the nose 2 or 3 times,
But
Yeah.
I mean, when we did the things at the boat landings for the people who rent the slips, we didn't do it all at once. We did,
Phased.
supposed to doing like $100 a year until it got to a certain point. And then we ended up having the conversation or argument, well, we can't hit them again.
Right.
But yet we had said, it's gonna go up $100 a year until we get to, I don't know, was it
We
1,200?
capped it off at 1,200.
Something like that. But then there was the conversation every year, well, we can't hit them again.
I remember that.
So we're kind of stuck between like, do you just go ahead and
Yeah.
rip the Band-Aid off?
Exactly.
And say it's gonna be $350 or whatever it is, or you're gonna say, it is $300 this year, but you can't tie the next council's hands, and you're gonna have a
No, I know.
majority new council next year.
I agree.
So, for the people that are sitting here that understand what's going on,
If the council is, if you're sitting there saying we'd like to go 400, I'm not gonna argue with you. I mean, I
maybe
agree
you don't
with
have to go quite
you.
that high, maybe you do 250 and 350.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
If you go-
something.
If you go 325 across the board,
Or you make everybody,
325.
well, I mean, right now you've got people at 960, 1,010, 1,030, and 720. Maybe you want to equalize the first 4 and make them $1,100 a year.
But the sewer districts don't have equal costs.
No, that's why I
So,
left out
so some would
Tillman.
be building up surpluses and others would be cutting it closer.
No, because, an older system like Tillman is still gonna need those repairs.
Right, and I was not including Tillman in that. I was leaving
Yeah.
Tillman a little
I would
bit.
thought that, bring them up to 325 too. Because you still got repair and maintenance, but that's an older system. And so it has, although it doesn't have the chemical use, it still has the repair and maintenance use. And you need an operator down there. Again, you're gonna
No,
have.
it's travel time, and I agree.
And travel time, so although it's an older, it doesn't require the chemical that Region 2 does, it's an older system, it's a further system, more breaks and more repairs.
Right, where you say everybody gets a 50% increase, so that everybody's increasing by the exact same percentage, not from 45, not 42, not 38, everybody gets a
If you go 50
50%.
across the board, I can agree with that too.
I think you gotta, if you make an arbitrary rule like that, you're gonna end up overcharging some people.
It's not arbitrary.
They're all within $50.
No, it is arbitrary,
Except
because
for Tillman, you're all within $50
You need to
of
look
each other
at
a
each of
year.
these as a separate business unit, and just because my rates in Easton are this high, doesn't mean your rates in St. Michael should be equal to that.
No, but look, they're all within $50 of each other after this, per year.
But
So-
but we measure these all as separate buckets.
Yes, I agree with that.
Are you saying that we want to build up a bigger surplus in Tillman than we want to build up in Unionville, Tunis Mills?
I don't see it, I don't consider it being arbitrary. I'm looking at these systems and what each of them have to go through. These systems never rest. They never rest. They're not like parking a bus. They're always moving every day. And if we know that we're losing people at a rate of a 30-day clip because we're not paying them enough, we have to increase that, bring new people on board, and to retain those new people. And your costs for repairs and maintenance are not ever going to go down. They're never going to go down. They're always going to be going up. So my thing is that, again, using your words, these are razor thin, and I'd rather get further in the black than in the gray, so that you won't have to come back to people again next year and do this again. You want to get people upset at you, keep on raising their rates every 2 years.
So if you
Well,
want to,
I would rather actually do a more frequent, smaller increase than wait 10 years and do a big one.
If people saw their rates going up every year, and there are
Well,
people looking
we-
at, they
we
saw
did
their
incremental, we
rates,
did
give them
a
2%
rate
this year, and 2% next year, and 2%, and they saw that bill going up 2% every year, you're gonna get a lot of calls.
Well,
but I mean,
you-
that's
you-
the way
they're
most
incremental.
expenses go up. I mean, gas, whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to to that, but right now, we need to hit do the
You
big
just
increase
solve
now, we need to
problems
figure out
today,
where we are, and then, and then obviously future councils are gonna have to, do some type of a cost of living adjustment or actual expenses. And the thing is, you can always, when I say refund, so I'm just gonna use the example of when I leased the store and paid into the property tax, and they have to do reconciliation. And if there was too much money in the fund, we got a credit back. So if these funds did build up too much, because they're not meant to make a profit, then I would expect a reconciliation and some type of a rebate back to the customer once you get more than X percent in the black. Make sense?
We're never gonna see that.
Reduce the
You
rate the
probably
following year.
won't, but if you do,
Not have it this industry.
Why does the revenue fluctuate if it's fixed pricing?
I think, what we do have, I get, for the last couple of years with COVID, some people have not paid in a little bit, so we have seen a
The way they're
little bit.
looking at that spreadsheet, you want to take just a minute, Joy, to explain the spreadsheet to council?
Sure. Sure. And so, what we did is summarize the profit and losses for the sanitary district back to fiscal year 16. Actually, the data is right off of the budget worksheets in your book. And what you see in our expenses,
TMC stands for.
revenues, and the bottom section is the operating profit or loss. Generally, you can see that we have, negative, we have a deficit. There are a couple of years where we have, I believe these are grant revenues that are coming in, that offset some of our costs.
That's the explanation.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. We didn't get a chance to dig deeply.
And that does happen too. I mean, we do get the grant funds that come in too.
So every single year, you're looking at a loss.
Right.
But so we total.
Is that for saying like-
Every
No,
single year.
not-
Yeah.
No,
so
yeah.
we total.
17 and 21 were good years.
We lost over the past 5 years,
Yeah, but-
6 years.
21 made up.
And so 21 is probably all that grant funding for the I&I
Just
work.
say
that
Mike
we're
was
doing,
in
say
21,
Mike.
you're still showing a loss.
Yeah.
So that's not customer fees that are
No.
creating that.
That would be nice to
That's
see
not
this
gonna lie.
spreadsheet with customer fees versus grant funds, so that we can actually see that.
We do that.
I would,
We take the,
So if we do the $300 recommended for each, 200 for Tillman, that gets us to the black in the short term.
Correct.
And you've only projected through the next fiscal year for that black.
Yes.
Are we seeing, what's the variable? You're going to assume increase in staff cost incremental every year?
That whatever, if there's a rate increase or a salary increase of 3%, that would have to be borne into
Sure.
this, so that
Sure.
would definitely have to be shown. The key right now, again, if Resolution 235 comes forward, we're probably in better shape than we are today, I'll say that. If it doesn't come forward, then it's probably gonna be, we're probably gonna have to look at a rate increase again, so I mean, I'm not gonna sit there.
and take a moment and explain what's the holdup on 235.
The last one right now is we're waiting for approval from MDE to get approval from the tribal council for a letter because we're digging a hole for the new treatment, or for the new pump station.
Tribal
The
council?
problems for a whole.
For a hole.
So that's what's holding us up on 235.
Doing anything of it, any of it?
What's that?
On doing any of it?
Yeah, that's where we're at right now, is that we've capitulated and said we'll put an archaeologist out there and pay them as they're digging, so I mean, that's kind of what, we're still waiting for the.
We can't dig right now because we're still in the wet season.
What?
You still can't dig until after March, right?
No, we can dig
Dig
there, well,
Okay.
if we get an architect, so I mean, yeah, that's where we're at.
So we gotta dig a hole, which is why we can't connect these houses.
Yeah, so that's
And
where.
whose land is it again?
What's that?
And
MDE.
Get on that.
MDE will not give us the final approvals until we have that tribal letter, and that's kind of where we're stuck. So we're waiting.
we need some political push to get this over so we can get these homes good.
Do we know who the tribal council
We've
is?
been calling them almost weekly, begging them to get this thing done, so, I mean, we're
Would they be
trying.
willing to come watch?
participate.
Well, I think the last thing I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, Gina, that we were talking about having an archaeologist be out there on site while they're digging, you know.
In case we hit anything.
I'd love to meet with them.
I think you should.
We don't, do we, where are they located again?
Delaware.
Delaware, somewhere in Delaware.
You gotta get this done.
They know that where we're
You
located.
can get water, yeah.
We sent them everything, we sent
I'm
them
making
It has never been
disturbed.
Or-
looked at for this area, they haven't been in this area, period. And this
We're not
2,
new.
3 acres of land that was previously undisturbed is of interest to them.
Where is that?
This is next to where our existing pump station is on 33 and 329, Royal Oak Road, right there.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Huh?
Like, for 235, how much debt is associated with that?
That, well, I kind of showed that about 100, that would be.
I know what the amount is per year, but,
Yeah, the debt, I think, is going to be, again, there's going to be the force mains that go into the communities, and then ultimately the pump station upgrade. I used $2 million for the pump station upgrade. I'm hoping it's less than that. So the pump station upgrade, we're looking at about $2 million, hopefully it's $1 million. And then the force mains is probably $1.6 million.
so maybe
Two point- yeah.
$3 to $4 million?
3 to 4, yeah.
And what year did
And
we,
so-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, just what year did we approve 235?
2016, I think, 2016.
Understood.
And so I guess the other issue is, we also need the funding, right? I mean,
That was part of that debt, the debt ratio, to get the loan for that, we had to have that debt ratio of 1, yeah.
You know, when you get to your profit levels, the way I look at that is that profit is really not profit, that money needs to go back into your repair and replacement fund. But you have to be able to start building
Which
a capital
is
fund.
which is my issue with Region 5. I don't think you can say Region 5 just because it's not. Region 5 is an older system. I think you want a bigger reserve fund because it's an older system. You want a bigger reserve fund because things are going to break.
Yeah,
One
but
caution, one
when do
repair.
you project that that is going to get connected to St. Michael's?
Region 5,
Wait, tell me.
Yeah, we got 235 connected together, 250 connected together.
right now, the earliest, I would say, would be 5 years, but I'd say probably out beyond that, so.
Just trying to be a doctor about it, wasn't it? How about that?
We'll try to get it done for next.
Just trying to be a doctor before my time was connected.
Well, if this gets us into the black for the next year, what you recommend, 300 and 200? Do we make a commitment to revisit this in a year's time, in 2 years' time?
I think we'd have to make it
And-
next
and
year. Yes.
Next year?
Yes, sir.
Well, if this gets us to a net positive for 1 year, and we're only looking at 1 year before we revisit this, I can live with that. I don't want to,
Sorry?
we need to raise these enough. It's irresponsible to raise them too much, but, are we on firm footing if we go with Ray's recommendation on 300 and 200, or do we need more of a margin here?
Again, I'm concerned that, I want to make sure that we're not short-sighted. Again, I'm,
Maybe we don't need to do a whole lot. Maybe it is another $25 for everybody. More? You think more than
I
that?
mean, so,
I think $25 at least.
I'm not sure what it is. I mean, again, we're talking about systems that are aging. I don't know what that costs.
So what number cushion, if you look at that, and some of them are making $5,000 in the black, and some are $38,000, what is a comfortable cushion for each region, and then we go back, figure out from there.
And again, the problem we're up to is what I would say, we're in a dynamic situation. We're waiting on resolution 235. I mean, if you went 300 or you went 325, I mean, that's, 325 is fine with me as well. But then you're gonna have to I think you're gonna have to find out, if you're not moving forward with resolution 235 by the end of this year, then you're probably looking at a rate increase again. I mean, it's one of those things, Resolution 235's gotta move, and if it doesn't move, we're getting nowhere, to the point that rates just keep going up.
So if you approve it though, the next council can also go the other direction. If things do go through, we could put things in place,
Mhm.
assuming it's 235 stuck, and then if it goes forward, then you can say, okay, we don't need to do the 400, we can go back it down to 350 or whatever.
Right.
I mean, we can do it either way.
Right, but I think, again, if the council wants a cushion, you go for 400, you go for 400, and then you monitor 235, where that goes. I mean, hopefully
So
it's.
one of the challenges is gonna be when it comes to construction, I mean, we have a bureaucracy we gotta work through with MD, but then when we go to construction, we got supply line issues, increased construction costs. It's gonna be, we have some headwinds trying to get this done in a year. So you wanna just try to factor in, raise some cushion.
I mean, like I said, the other thing too on our end is, once, we're still trying to work with MDE as to what the level of grant funding we're gonna have, because we need to start the process of getting these property owners signed up for sewer. So, I mean, that's something we need to
So we've
start.
hooked up nobody from that resolution.
We've only hooked up about 50 out of the three. We're working again, you all approved Chesapeake Center, so we'll be hooking them up. So we still have 300 houses probably to hook up.
The one that's not included in here is the one we're getting ready to take over.
The Preserve at Y Mills.
Yeah.
The Preserve at Y Mills, basically, we've got a separate budget for that. And what we're proposing, because of staffing, is currently got contract operations through ProStar, if I'm not mistaken. We're just gonna continue that.
What's their rate that they pay?
They're-
Is theirs based on usage or is it flat rate?
They're paying kind of like a flat rate as well, but they're paying pretty heavy. I mean, the ProStar, I think, is almost about $90,000 a year just for their operation. So they're paying close to $150, almost $200 a month.
A month.
And so back to, back to us trying to achieve a profit ratio for MDE so that we can break some of the financial opportunities free is a huge issue, but I can certainly attest, the council knows that Ray's going around and around and around with MDE on trying to get 235 and 250 broken loose to even get additional connections. And of course, we've had a little bit of a breakthrough here recently, which is great, but, it's been a real challenge, for sure.
It doesn't seem like the numbers go up the same amount. Like a $100 a year increase. Maybe I'm not doing the math right. It says $200 a year is what, about 202,000 in revenue? But a $300 increase is only 92,000.
Which column are you looking at, Frank?
The Talbot County Sewer District breakdown, even analysis, the bottom numbers.
Now, on the revenue side, I mean, what I would say, what you have is you have the number of EDUs, and I think I used that.
That's pretty variable from district to district.
Yeah, so what happens is it's going to be based upon those EDUs, and then you multiply that by 100, then 200, and then 300 and 400, which is then added to what your revenue, I added here. Now, the difference that I do have between, let's say, what you may have in the budget versus what's shown here, I did not include the penalty and interest, and it was like $2,000 and something else. I did not include that. And then on the, because we use the repair and replacement fund as like a zero out, to make sure our expenses and revenues equal. I just zeroed that out to show kind of like the expenditure side. So that probably the difference between what my numbers are versus what you may have in the budget. But
I was doing something, you said, went an extra $25 for the Unionville, Tunis Mills, and Copperville, right? Just an extra $25. That would bring you in about $37,000, roughly.
Yeah, I think for Unionville, Tunis Mills, Cottonville, if I'm not mistaken, that number hits, I remember that. That was about 220 EDUs, if I'm not mistaken.
And if you did for Royal Oak Music and Belridge, you did an extra $25.
Yeah, yeah.
That would bring you in roughly about $94,000 in revenue. St. Michael's would bring you roughly, I think, $323,000.
Okay.
So what's the finance director's
I think
number?
that,
What do you think? What do you think that is the right number? Because that's your part.
push you further in the black so you won't have to keep on.
I can tell you, I would rather do a much smaller increase annually and try to get to the point of returning money if you get to that point. But I would rather it be exact.
Well, returning money, I don't think you're ever.
You're not returning, but reducing the following years. If there is an abundance of cash in one of them, then somebody's usual rates go down that following year. Something almost try to be as exact as possible.
I would think it's unheard of to ever return money in the sanitary district. So that's really pie in the sky thinking that you're ever going to get to a point where you're going to give people money back in the sanitary district. So I would just really throw that notion out of your head. You're never going to have so much money in the sanitary district where you can give people a rebate. You're not. Costs are going to, again, consistently go up. You're going to increase labor costs every year, material costs, operational costs. The system never rests. It is a
Frank, do you mean
continually moving system.
maybe
It
he
never
means
rests.
less of an increase. If you're planning on $50 a year and we get better, maybe it's only $25. Is that what you're saying? Less of an increase rather than a rebate? Is that what you're trying to?
Yes, making the numbers balanced as exact as
I
possible.
think that's what everybody's trying to say. I'm a little bit, I haven't said much, I've just been listening. I'm trying to think of the user. Well, if I'm and I get a bill for an extra $400 a year, I'm gonna be pissed. Okay. I understand our position, because we're losing money on this. But I think I would, if I was a user, I'd want to see a small increase, knowing that for the next, from here on out, this is going to be bumped up $25 or $50 a year for the next 5 years or hereafter. I'd like the smaller increases through the next 5 years versus one big one.
Okay, but that doesn't work. Because
Why?
first off, they've got to at least get into the black. They've got to at least get to just above breaking even.
Or
We need to do that now.
Or we can't get our next loan from the
Yeah, get the
MDE.
next loan. So
Right, so you
your
have to do
rate
that.
doesn't get to the loan.
And the other thing is, I'm just going back to the stupid vote plan slips.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm going back to the vote slips. And we end up arguing about it every year, whether we're going to go up. And you're going to have
Well-
almost a whole new council next time who's not going to
I
understand
understand.
this.
Can we hear from Joy?
Yeah, go ahead, Joy.
I have a couple things. To your
Okay.
point, what would I do?
Yes.
Again, I think we gotta look out more than, we can't just look at fiscal year 23 and vacuum. To Corey's point, we need to make sure that we at least look at the next couple of years, whatever,
3 fiscal years.
yeah,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Whatever these rates we're coming up with makes sense. The other point I wanted to make is that I thought that MDE said to us that as long as the trend looks right, they
Right.
may be willing to work with us.
Right. Which I
So
think.
if we don't hit exactly 1%, 1.2%.
Right. I think they were focused on one. They were focused on one. So I think the key is if we went to the 300 and things look good next year, we may have to still do an increase. We still may have to do an increase. We don't know what that might be.
Yeah.
But MDE may go, well, you guys are moving in the right direction. So that's
And when you say to focus on one, what do you mean by
that
one?
one, the debt ratio of one, that debt ratio of one. MDE did their analysis and has told us to meet that debt ratio of one, it's $400. Now, what I'm going to say, I'm going to be honest, that was before we were looking at the salary increases. So,
So that is over 400.
yes.
Right, so now it's
yes.
over 400.
Now it's over 400. So the key is we're going to have to probably see where we stand next year, on all this.
I know you guys don't like this, but from what I'm hearing, 300 is not gonna get you where you wanna be.
Well, it sounds
It's
like to
not.
me that MDE's not gonna move if we don't.
Yeah, you're not gonna get the loans. And if you don't get the loans, you're talking about people being pissed at you.
But I wa-
Try when the system breaks and you can't fix it.
Right.
And you can't, let-
Now,
you
try to
can't,
answer that question.
You're kind of stuck between a
you
rock and a
can't
hard
keep
place.
letting the general taxpayer who's
Right.
paying other
Right.
utilities
Right.
subsidize,
Right.
you know, the sanitary districts. The fee is what it is. It has to cover the costs, and
Right.
nobody likes their bills to go up. Of course not. But it would, if I was, living in the town of Easton and I'm paying my water bill there, how dare my tax dollars start going to subsidize Tillman? That's wrong.
And the other thing, I just, because again, our conversation with MDE, they also indicated we could go $200, do it $200 this year and then $200 next year, is what they recommended. But I think, looking at these numbers, $200 wasn't gonna work. So it's like, that's why I was proposing
So,
300.
so, Julie, was I right about, so, I'm horrible, about $25, if you had another $25 for it, Unionville, Tunis Mills, and Copperville, was that 37? I got 37,837. Is that right?
I think you gotta do the
220
whole amount.
EDUs,
Which is what Ray
220
recommends, not
EDUs
the
times $25.
It's gonna be 5,500, roughly. 5,500.
$5,500? I just divided by 4 to $100
You
and,
can't.
So every $25 gets us about 5,000.
For Union.
For a union.
So-
it depends on the number.
Yeah. St. Michael's is roughly about 1,750 users. So if you did $25 in St. Michael's, you're gonna go let's just say 1,700 times 25, that'd be 42.5. So, because of the number of users is what,
Which is not, the number of
it-
users is not.
yeah,
what
it's gonna generate the difference in the
so
revenues.
with the extra $25 for Unionville, Tunis Mills, and Newton, what would that generate in revenue?
$25 for Unionville, Tunisville, Scottville, $25 would only generate about $5,500.
$5,000?
$500.
So just doubles that.
And then if I'm correct, I think it's 268 times 25, that'd be Royal Oak, Newcomb, and Bellevue. $25 would only generate another $6,700. The $25 you'll see a bump up like 42,000 in St. Michael's because it's got 1,700
Okay,
users.
so I didn't do that right, I just knew about it about 4, that's not right, okay.
So go ahead, Pete.
We're not taking action now, but we're giving direction to staff to draw these up for the rate increases for the budget. I'm gonna propose that we do precisely what Ray has recommended to us, which is 300 for all the districts, except for Tillman, 200 for that one. And commit to revisit this in a year's time.
I would go up to 325. I would go 325 for those 4 and 225 for Tillman.
I would do that because that's
Yeah.
7%, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the
That's
county's
25.
down, I mean, that's kind of salary increase.
Because the $400 did not cover the salary increase, it didn't
Okay.
cover that.
Fully.
You're
All right.
still working from behind.
And then obviously we need to, you need to
They could
put the chart together.
and whoever's
see-
here next year can revisit it again, but don't put yourself behind
Right.
where you
And I want to make sure that
On purpose.
this moves MDE.
I think MDE's gonna be fine with this, because again, they were talking $200 without the rate increase, or the salary increase. So we've gone 300, kind of covers that salary component.
Okay.
But I think MDE was willing to work with us, I'll say that right now.
It's
If
amazing
you come
after
up
how
with a
we've
different
treated them.
number.
Well, there's
we
two
need
different
counts.
groups.
Thank God.
If Joy comes up with a different number that she recommends, going back and looking at this and multiplying by the number of users, then we need to listen to her too.
Agreed.
So we get 325 each?
Enjoy, I would love to see this, if it was just me, if you pulled the
325.
grant
225.
out of it,
And then let her give us the.
I think that would help me get over the hump.
Okay.
The grants and the capital expenditure.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And that should get us a little bit ahead going to end of the year. And
Does this do
and
anything
I
with the-
think, one more thing, I made light of that hole, but it's serious. So if you can get with him or whoever, that hole needs to get dug. It really does. It doesn't make any sense that we're stuck on 235 because of a hole. It really doesn't. I'm not making light of it, but it's serious. We gotta get that hole dug. About the tribal.
Yeah, tribal council.
I know
read
how
that
you love to
letter.
write memos. Can you write us
Yeah.
a short one, please? Short?
On which one?
Exact-
On what do you want?
On what that is.
On the tribal council.
On the tribal, oh yeah, we'll get that to
Three
you.
sentences or less.
See, I'm on the
No,
public.
I don't know if you can do 3 sentences.
Tribal
He's like,
council
maybe
won't
that too.
return our
You can't
call.
do that.
Probably need to talk to Susan because she tries to edit his.
Okay, I'll just say tribal council hasn't returned our calls.
Yeah.
So-
No, I want to know, I want to understand, because if I, if I
Sure.
just a
She needs to know
conversation
who
I want to
to talk
have.
to.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
she
need
needs to know
better-
who
I'll work with Gene, we'll get that to you tomorrow. so.
You got a push on getting that done.
We'll do that.
All right.
You were saying
All right,
something?
guys.
So, one of the things that we were hoping to do this afternoon was to look at the entire sanitary district's budget.
Right, so we reconvene in a few minutes when we go to the budget.
Are we doing that out here, or we're going to go back yonder?
Up
That-
here.
Thank you.
Down here. And we're going to budget, and then we're going to start off with the sanitary districts. It seemed like a good segue.
My books are back there.
So if you'd like to take a break, Mr.
Okay.
Council President?
Yep, let's take a break and I can get my book too. Yep.
Who's bringing me coffee?
Cream and sugar in it?
No, Joe. Quit saying
We're
nothing.
going to be taking a look at expenses and capital.
And when they start discussing how we use revenues, we're going to take a break, and we're all going to listen.
Okay, okay.
When they-
No,
when they
it's
get
pretty
to
much
voting session.
that up there, but okay. But yeah, it's,
You want me to-
I think you'd all be interested in it. I don't know how long they're going to discuss it. Right now, they've gone out.
Okay.
Convention.
that's fine. We'll do.
Keep track of that.
Well, I have it out, so I know which one.
You're doing it right now, right?
Well,
Okay, if you want, I can do that. I'm here. All right. So, did you want to stick around or you want to leave? What's that? Okay, go, you go. Go get your kids, go get the kids.
Leadership came up with those amendments and said, okay, you're at 3.26%, raise to 14. Over the next 4 years, we're going to be done.
Make sure they don't hit each other with the baseball or the bat. That's the key.
Thing is,
Yeah, I think my son, tried to show him how to hit the ball, and he clips the ball, hits himself in the face. That's the last time he played baseball.
Russell, you gotta just have them play the cross. It's fast. Before you go in and play the dump. You don't have the 2-hour wait.
Until they get older, they blow out their knees, and then they're really in trouble, you know?
I was just doing a final check with you, that's all I got called.
What's that?
I was just doing a final check with you.
Okay.
So that is-
According to Craig, who's our lead sponsor in the Senate, they wanted like 20 others.
Am I staying for this part or?
Trying to get to the.
You would like, I mean,
You might as well.
might as well. Russell's leaving, but.
Percentage.
No, you go, you go.
Oh, good, good.
You know what, I did, I took
So
that
that's,
spreadsheet,
you know,
gave me
so.
the
Well, I think,
So
yeah,
there was,
We just need to do
And I
that.
spread
it's
it.
ugly reform.
which was just a lease with all.
Well, I mean, I don't think the council, in my opinion, is not, they're not bought.
Did 30%, which is a
One year, 2, 3, you know, what one
percentage.
Soda.
when you have a chance, just give it all.
Now, they said 10% is all under 3.2, but the county said it's down to 2.5.
37 years.
Wow.
So she's kind of a ditz, everybody knows that.
Big Susie.
So now they have basically 4 bills that they're when they get to the voting session.
So
They're so far behind schedule, who knows?
My son-
I'm getting sober.
first grandchild here.
Who's in there
First
from,
Metro here.
Right.
And so
So
when he
no, at this point, once you
just
cross
gets the
over.
call,
Nobody
so
knows?
okay, when you
Correct.
grandmother's gonna go by,
So only Andrew
kids
Tim
pick,
went up and he
yeah,
just
go with that.
said,
So she got a big grandma. My mom's 80 pounds. No matter how big you're gonna be, you're unfortunately gonna be big grandma. So it has stuck. Yes, like grandma, little grandma.
It was funny, my grandparents, they were, would always, they would be in Hawaii all the time, so we always call my grandmother Tutu, which is Hawaiian. And so I always grew up with Tutu. And then Lori, she's like, well, I don't want to be called Mom. So she said, I'm gonna have my kids call me Tutu. And then, it's like, well, why you, well, what's Hawaiian or what's Grandpa in Hawaii? We're not going there, Lori. And it's cuckoo cane. I said, it's gonna be getting short to cuckoo, and ain't happening. So I'm known as Ray, right?
There you go. My father came home one day from school and just started calling his mother Gertrude, and
Oh, wow.
it stuck. And when she was in the nursing home, they had her name on the outside was Crazy Gert. Mary Sue ended up as Gertrude. My
Yeah.
mom wanted to be G-Mom.
There you go.
Had a gold chain, is that how you see that?
Oh, I didn't think of it. Oh.
And I remember telling her, and my uncle was there, he says, gosh, Susie, how's it gonna feel to be a grandma? She said, I hadn't really thought about it much. And I looked at him and said, how's it gonna feel to be a great uncle? Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. Title change quick.
It gets ugly when you start, it's like, our son getting married in June, and it's like, you were only this big, like 10 years ago. What the hell's wrong here? I said, God. I got old somehow. I don't know how this happened. I got old. I don't know. I'm like, oh.
We're fortunate for the opportunity to get you.
Thank you.
I know what you wanted.
Actually, I'm enjoying it.
Good.
These guys are great to work with. You've got to get Terry to hang around.
We'll run on. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It's not, I mean, the problem we're running into is not, we can't get into.
But Randy, though.
I was gonna do some research on how to.
Yeah. Maybe we need some context that have got engineering degrees. I don't know.
Chuck's on the call, he said if he doesn't come in, just go ahead and start. He had to take a call, something about a job he's doing.
When I was looking at colleges for wrestling, Iowa had an awesome wrestling program, and that they were going into jails and finding people who had wrestling in their background, had these aggressive charges, and they filled their team with it. And the team was great, but they ended up with like the worst rape and crime rates on any campus.
We're going into the packet now? Is that right?
Yeah. I should have given you something there.
Got the packet here.
All right.
Yeah. Got wires everywhere.
Still being recorded.
Water everywhere. I'm gonna drop it.
So it looks like Unionville, UTMC first.
What's first?
UTMC looked like this.
Yep.
UTMC.
That's
You go to Smithfield, Copperville.
That's right.
You gotta know the name of the villages, right?
Right, just,
Give
you
him-
wanna do package?
We're gonna give him a village quiz at the end of this, right? How many villages you can name?
What is there, 29 of them in Talbot County?
27.
I like when we had the village board, the village people. Remember the village people?
Yes, I do remember the village board, yes.
They were great from an emergency management perspective, it was great because, you know, when we had something, I would send it to the main person, they would send it out to the villages. Worked out really nice.
But Martin led that.
He
Martin
did.
led
He
that.
did.
Are we being live streamed?
I don't.
Because if we're stuffing our faces, I'm not so sure that's pretty.
Well, just
Belt filter
use
press.
your napkin.
The administrative resolution from last week. Thank you so much.
All right. Chuck would like us to go ahead, he's on a call. We've got some new stuff, starting with sanitary districts.
Yeah, so Joy, do you want to start leading everyone through this conversation?
Yeah, so sorry.
No.
Okay.
She seems to be getting organized right now, Mr. Council Vice President.
There's,
So are we only going to be looking at this packet right now, Davis?
Yes. So,
Sure.
this would be a good opportunity to review the sanitary district budgets. And what we have are the budget worksheets for all of them, as well as you also have the capital outlay budget request and the details, and the CIP budget.
And you'd like to go through all that, through all the districts?
Yes.
So even though we're going to do CIP probably Thursday,
Yeah, we're gonna look at-
we'll go ahead and tackle CIP for this.
Right.
We doing something? Did we confirm Thursday?
Well, we're going to talk about next steps.
Because I gotta,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it.
Let's do
You
it.
want to talk about this meeting? Before we get started?
Speaking of Jake.
No, no,
Okay,
go ahead,
all
start.
right, let's get started. All right, so, first up is UTMC.
Mhm. They want the truck, they got the truck already, they want the truck?
No, we have not purchased, it's a new 4x4 pickup truck.
Right.
And that was split between Tillman, Royal Oak, Newman, Bellevue, and Unionville, Tennis, Wisconsin for the truck.
Okay. Yeah, Pumps are no longer supported by,
Yeah, by E1, these are the grinder pumps. We have the 1000 series pumps, and they're no longer supported by E1, so we have to go to the extreme pumps. And so we can get them for about $2,500 a pump. So
how many pumps is that?
Within Unionville, right now, we're looking at 220 pumps, but we're looking at just go ahead and buying 10 extremes at this point in time.
10 pumps for $25.
When you say supported by E1, what does E1 mean?
That's the name of the company,
Okay.
E1 Pumps, grinder pumps.
Can we put down on that?
Everyone's good with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, since we're increasing the rates to pay for it, right?
So,
That's what I understand.
like the session mentioned again, that these, the budget worksheets do not include any salary increases.
Okay.
Oh, so that's gonna have to be, yeah, and so what we're looking at, okay. We do have those numbers.
So that's a closed session, right?
We're getting- Yeah, we do have a proposal.
Yeah, okay, so we'll be going over salary numbers, but,
Yes. it's a
Closed
closed
session,
session.
okay.
but I need, so the challenge I have with this is that I have an immediate need to gain approval for the salary adjustment for these employees. And we're looking at an average 7% increase. To remain competitive, it was tied against the compensation study, and it's gonna cost about $65,000 to do.
Do we need to have a few minutes of closed session at some point this evening so we can talk about that?
We haven't advertised for
We
that.
haven't-
Yeah, advertised that. So what's
So,
I mean, look, I know we're not in closed with that, I mean,
Just excuse me again, we're being recorded this evening.
yes, I think we should leave that
I
alone.
think
I
we
would-
really should talk
Thank
about
you.
this in closed session.
Yep. Yep.
so we'll schedule that as appropriate.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay. So,
next.
next is on the, again,
Rural Urban Newcomb and
yes.
Bellevue.
Another truck?
Part of the truck.
Same.
Not the same truck, is it?
It is, it is,
Same
it
truck.
is.
Oh, you split the cost.
Split the cost of
Oh,
the-
yeah, you split in half. Okay.
The front cost of the truck is $70,000,
Yeah.
and it's split over.
There you go.
Unionville, Tinsville, Scottville, Royal Oak, Newman, Bellevue, and Tillman are splitting the truck.
There you go. There you go. All right.
And so, in addition, here are some
Mhm.
fluid pumps.
You another thumbs up for that, or what do you need? I'm good?
Yep. We're good with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not buying a whole lot of replacement pumps for $10,000, are you? These
These
pumps
are-
out in the yard in front of every house?
Yes, and the one advantage we have with these are actually Goulds pumps. We don't have the failure rates with these is not that high, so.
So these are just replacing them when needed? This is not a wholesale
Correct.
replacement?
Correct, yes.
And you're replacing these with the new ones because you can't get parts for the old ones anymore?
The Goulds pumps, I hate to say this, Goulds pumps are just easy to trash. We don't try to refurbish these pumps, we just trash them.
Yeah.
So this is just basically to keep our supply. That's all
Okay.
we're doing.
Okay,
Okay.
makes sense.
Next is St. Michael's.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Next is St. Michael's. in terms of capital outlay, we have,
Panels and
yeah,
meters?
panels and meters, replacements.
Good.
Yep.
They are metered in
I'm
St.
just
Michael's?
trying to stand down.
These are actually electric meters,
Oh.
ETI meters and whatnot for the panels.
Okay.
Next,
Mm-hmm.
Phil,
Same truck?
Same truck.
part of the truck and $25,000 for the pump.
And again, tell them we have also E1s, or vortex pumps, which are, the same as E1s.
How did you didn't apportion the cost of the truck the same across all the districts?
No,
Why is-
actually what I did
Why
is-
is Tillman so much higher?
Because of the number of EDUs. So, like, if I recall correctly, Unionville, Cottonville is 220, Royal Oak, Newcomb, Bellevue is like 260 or something, like 400 something, and Tillman might be 500, so whatever the ratio was between the EDUs is what the
I'm good.
breakdown was.
1, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, 5. You good?
Septic,
Okay.
Yeah,
the capital septic,
actually,
the blacktop, isn't it? You got, it's gonna be a number in it?
Yeah.
Tillman, we had, I thought also our water pumps, yeah, our wash station said it was only about 2,600 bucks, as well as, there were masks, we needed some new respirator masks.
Is that Tillman?
Yeah, Tillman, because we have pouring gas that we use down there, so we need.
And just, I mean, so
What's that?
this is an FYI for council, but Ray just had, he's had Mosh come down and
We've had most come down.
do a safety, they can offer service.
Right.
Yeah, they were just down and they've identified some things that have been repaired, so, council should.
And we did that through all of the facilities, biosolids, all of our improvement plans, so it wasn't just Tillman, we did the same levels.
Good.
So is there another number in capital outlay we should add here? No? For the
On the
man?
Tillman? You tell
Tillman.
Tillman, yeah, again, there's one more for 2386, 2386.
for that.
2386. And that was,
Right, so-
respirators?
Yeah, so the cost of the pickup truck is not right on that, but that's the issue.
Which one?
On Tillman. Yeah, the cost of the pickup truck should be 32,382,
32.
It's actually,
right? And then
Okay.
and then the mask is 2386.
2386 for the face mask?
The total capital outlay was 59,768.
Correct.
Right.
So they're looking at this page,
Okay.
and it's not broken out yet.
Oh,
yeah.
That's my point.
all right, thank
Okay, so face mask, 2386.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. Nothing on the subject?
Well, we gotta make a correction there too, because there's a gator.
It's a gator?
Yeah.
For $5,000.
Nothing on the gator? Gotta write it in.
Gator?
Gator.
Like, okay.
It's like a little 4x4 kind of thing, but it's, so the guys can drive around to Sprague's Pickets or Milestone.
I'm good.
Okay, we're good on
I'm good with gator. Yeah, I thought it was good.
Thumbs up and all around.
Gotta have the parts to make it work, right?
When you buy it, can I come down and ride it around?
That's 3.
Yes.
5.
No, I can drive it.
Do we do them all?
You got sanitary dishes, Martin?
Marty.
I guess we're out of order.
Replacement of a vacuum valve?
Yes.
2,000? You good?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it?
That covers it.
Capital outlay done.
That it?
That's it?
Can we talk about your
Oh, yeah, that's fine too. Okay.
CIP?
Your page?
Do you have a copy?
Okay. All right, what we got? This year, we continue.
Okay. All right, so, we need to talk about the new items, right?
The new items right now, was one is, I guess, adding to Barneck and Fairbank. We were estimating now the sewer extension to be $2.19 million. So we're increasing that by, I guess, $190,000.
Yeah.
And then the other new project we have is actually the emergency generator with Martingham. So we've submitted funding to MDE for both the water and wastewater system for the Martingham generator, which was $340,000.
And we've segregated that now, that's gonna be only for the wastewater system, right?
Actually, no.
We're back together.
We're back together again.
Okay, so this is for council's knowledge, because Martingham, we were looking at buying one generator for both the water system and the wastewater system, and then it appeared that we're gonna do two separate, Martingham was gonna do a water, we were gonna do wastewater. And now I'm hearing that this is gonna be a combined solution again.
Correct, and I think the other thing is we just, like, you're probably not familiar with this one, I've been talking with the Martingham folks, and we've, one of the things we currently have within the Martingham budget is they actually pay us to operate their water system. We were talking about not doing that, but if we can go ahead and add staff, we can continue that operation, so that's what we're proposing to try to do is continue that operation if we get the staff.
I think the more we keep everything in-house, the better on these small substations, subdivisions. It's my
But that was the other reason they were going to stay with us.
530 increase?
Total? Yes.
530. I'm good.
Okay, okay? We have
Yes.
2, 3, 4, and Chuck. You good?
I'm good, yeah, I said yeah.
All right?
All right,
We don't believe
is that done? Are we all right?
think
we're done
with Ray.
Two questions, one on the record. Thinking about these sanitary districts, and this is going to be real unpopular, but I just want to talk it through. There's a tremendous amount of people in this county that have septic systems. And so they're paying a company to come in and pump out, which that company then comes to you, hopefully. Well,
The septic facility, correct?
yeah, they have the option of here, Dorchester's got one,
Most of the times right now with transportation costs, they are coming here.
they're coming here, okay. And have we increased any of those rates?
We currently are charging about I think it's almost 9 cents. I have to double check that. We bumped it up a little bit from time to time, but one of the problems we are running into is that we had the solar facility that was generating a lot of revenue for us. We're no longer, at one point we were getting over $225,000 a year. We're getting now probably closer to $25,000 a year. So, one of the ideas, and I was presenting that as part of the Boss Office facility, is that, it is a facility we have to have and, and identify for where the septic would go and be treated. One idea would be to have like a septic fee, very much like the Bay Restoration Fund fee, to where that would generate the revenue to help pay off, and pay for that septic facility.
Because what I'm thinking is everybody, loses their mind anytime that they think one of the main systems is out of compliance or an issue like that, but nobody cares about all the failing septics that are in the community. Have we ever instituted any kind of fees or monitoring of those or compliance?
No.
There's a recommendation in the comp plan to do an inspection every 3 years.
It
5
was,
years.
I think, and then the one thing I will say, and again, I wasn't here for it, I guess it was back in the early 90s. The septic facility, they ended up, I guess it was what I'd call it the septic wars. You had one septic hauler that owned the wastewater facility, and the others had to take their stuff there. That created a lot of problems. We then started talking one year about doing a mandatory pump out program. We don't want to talk about that. The haulers came out of the woodwork and saying, don't do that, don't do that. So, and I can understand from talking with the
Because we were going to
haulers.
require it every 3 years, and some guys voluntarily do it every 1 year, and they thought they were going to undercut their business.
Well, then there was the conversation we had about at the sale of the property, that you would
Right.
have to have a mandatory inspection and all that. I don't know where we are on all that. That was.
I don't think we have anything there, but what I will say, one of the problems we get caught with, and this is like more information you want to hear, but with a lot of the septic systems let's say we have the failing septic systems in the Bay 100 area and whatnot, those septic systems unfortunately are coupled with the groundwater. So what ends up happening is that septic tank will come out and that pipe discharges into the drain field. Well, the drain field penetrates the groundwater. So if the groundwater is rising on you, the water that's supposed to go down is now coming up. So what can happen is you pump out that tank, and if the groundwater is higher than the pipe, then what happens is that tank that you just pumped out backfills with groundwater. And so, and then the problem you now have is that with groundwater rising, if it's 6 inches below the surface of the ground and you do your clothes washing, that's coming right out the ground. So, that's why.
Squishy lawns.
Yeah.
Kind of stink.
And I guess I was also thinking about, you think about it like a bushel of oysters, you gotta have the oyster tag on it.
Right.
To show where you got them from and, you know, the license and all that information. That, there could be something created that way for the county resident that has a septic, that their effluent is being pumped and taken to the county. It might be cheaper for the truck to do it if they're doing in-house, if you had to increase the fees. You know, I don't know how you would balance out the other counties, but I know, it seems like there's a significant population in the county that could be out of compliance or have failing systems that are polluting, that aren't paying, that aren't contributing towards anything, and therefore maybe the county dollars that are doing the right thing by improving these could be offset by those people paying a sewer fee for not having a sewer.
And the septic, I mean, in line with that, I think the septic fee kind of takes a little bit on that approach.
But I don't want to put it on the truck because then you're putting it on the
Oh,
company.
no. This would actually be something, what I was proposing, would be legislative.
Yeah.
You would apply it to every property that's on a septic system. So you're no longer, now you have this septic fee to have support for that septic facility to help pay the debt on it.
So, and then you could also do something of, if you're outside of the sanitary district, there could be a septic fee or some, or
Yeah.
but that, and that's also, again, justification to use general fund dollars to maintain all those who are doing the right thing, to try to convince them to go onto it, things like that. Okay, thank you, that's good.
It was, you had 2 questions, is that one?
The other one was offline.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No?
All right, pleasure.
Thank you, Ray, good job.
Right.
Make sure you have what you need.
Yes. So,
Gotcha, that's, okay, I thought I did.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Gene.
Email you something, can you print it?
yeah.
Is this for the school?
One is for the school. Yes.
I'll be,
Hey, Jane.
And the other is to review the CAP.
you did send 2 sheets out right after Ken, and those are in the packet.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
She wants to redo the supplemental so they have it later.
Joy, did you, the number, the actual number for schools was supposed to come out Friday, did you get it? You did.
But I did want the sale here.
Yeah, so Sarah said come up.
Only got
Sarah.
3.
Okay.
Only got 3 pages. I guess there are 3 pages.
So you have.
Print out some more for me.
So in your book, yes.
We're just going to print out, so we need a few minutes, so we can
Okay.
print out a couple things.
So beginning on page 5 in your booklet, is the detail related to the Board of Education.
In their tab?
Yes.
Booklets.
Page 5. Starts at page 5.
Full-fledged book.
it in what they gave us or what you all printed out? Well, no, I mean, is it,
Are these the same?
of,
5.1 is just,
Yeah.
well, but there's their book and then there's the PowerPoint presentation
Okay.
with it.
Yeah, digest.
So it should be a summary and then some supporting details from the Board of Ed.
5.1.
And then
Okay.
separately today, I emailed you some information that Sarah very nicely provided us that speaks about
Thank you,
their
Sarah.
increases. Great.
Well, it just summarizes kind of what Kelly talked about at our meeting, but maybe hopefully in a succinct way.
And Jessica also has a copy, thank you, Jessica. She's gonna hand out a copy of your request for CIP funding.
The capital?
Yes, yes.
Got it.
So Sarah, did you guys finally get an actual number? Because that was supposed to come out Friday, and if not, I'll see if maybe you can get it for us while we're here.
Or from NSDE, we've gotten our local share
And
number.
that's-
Keep them together.
So is
Keep
that
them
the
together
one
and
from
pass
Friday?
it
Because that's the date that they told us.
All the things color. Here's the second one.
No, we haven't got any
Here's
updated
yours.
numbers
Thank you.
since, January. Now, what I will tell you
Thank you.
is what we were working on legislatively was potentially revising the MOE calculation, which doesn't really impact us. We're, the higher of MOE or local share.
Well, it's supposed to be the higher of MOE or Kerwin,
Right.
and that's what's supposed to come out Friday, so I'm gonna
We're
see if I
so
can
much
get it.
higher with Kerwin than MOE, it's like, it's not gonna have an impact on us.
So, yeah.
Oh, I
Thank you for being here.
didn't know we were, I was
No,
just
no,
here
no,
to
you don't have
respond to
present.
y'all's.
You don't have to present. We-
Your
so I
discussion
will
and
leave
questions.
And thank you for being here.
Sure.
Because, there may be questions.
Sure.
So, again. That's for you have the Board of Education request for fiscal year '23 support. The mandated amount is, I'm rounding, $45,900,000. The supplemental request is $2,070,000. We are also including a request for $130,000 to fund the implementation coordinator that we have spoken about. So the total request is $48.1 million.
So Kerwin plus over $2 million.
Yes, and that's a $4.2 million increase year over year compared with last year's budget. Also, we'll be speaking about tonight the BOE's request for capital spending, and that totals $2.7 million. And you have the details on.
Here.
You have the details here. Yes.
So which sheet are we working on right now?
So we're starting by looking at,
This sheet,
Yeah,
this sheet
totals.
here, we're starting here. Okay.
Yeah, again, I'm not convinced that's the amount, because they said everything was not quite right, and that they had double accounted for certain counties, and that's why they were gonna come up with all new numbers on Friday.
So what they're talking about with the double counting, the kicker, the escalator, they put in 2 times, right? So they did do that in the MOE calculation. Joy, do you have that? I have it on my computer, I don't have the thing we talked about yesterday.
Yes.
Let's see if we have that. So they did that when they calculated ours. So even if you back that out, even with the double kicker, if you back out the kicker, if you put in the kicker one time, it is so much lower than Kerwin, it just doesn't impact us. We're going to get the Kerwin, the local share. So Laura, if they said they were gonna put those out, I haven't seen them yet, and, I mean, they haven't sent them out to us yet.
I sent 2 text messages to see if we get anything more.
Okay, sounds good. But I have a feeling it should impact
So,
us, so.
I can print those out. I think you want me to print them out for you.
Can I see the version you have?
Sure, it's the one that you sent.
I just want to make sure it has the LE here. It's a little bit bigger. I'm not sure if it does. One version of the one version.
Yeah.
Does that say final maintenance of effort?
Is this column?
Okay, then yeah.
Okay. And they asked you again, Jessica?
Yeah, of course. Did you send it to me?
Yes, they just
Okay,
did.
perfect.
Thank you.
So what are you printing out now, Julie?
So what we're printing out is a copy of, that describes what the county needs to give the
The base.
DOE.
The minimum mandate.
amount that we do.
okay.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna start right off the bat. Kerwin's not a minimum amount. Kerwin is supposed to be all-inclusive. It's supposed to include all the staff positions that are mandated. So any requests over and above on staff and stuff is supposed to be in Kerwin. And, I mean, it's such a huge increase, and it's gonna be a huge increase by millions every year, that there should never, this was supposed to stop the budget requests over and above, you know, what was maintenance of effort, because they studied Kerwin for 4 years. And so, you know, I don't know if this, for example, this packet of instructors that you need, that's supposed to be in Kerwin. And whatever Kerwin is mandating is what we should be funding. But to come in and ask for another $2 million on top of a huge increase, we shouldn't be doing this every year. And I think that this council needs to set the example of, that's the reason they did Kerwin. In 2032, we're going to be up to $81 million a year, which is bigger than by $10 million in the first budget I ever worked on. I mean,
Well, there are whole areas that Kerwin doesn't address.
well,
You're right,
then
Bob,
maybe
right.
they should have, because what we're going to have to fund in Talbot County is going to skyrocket our property taxes. We just can't do that to people. You know, they spent 4 years doing this. And then or 3 years doing it, and another year of trying to figure out the funding and the split between the state and the counties, and the state has mandated this. And this is really important. We should not be going back and forth every year. This was supposed to include everything. And if it doesn't, then I believe it's the obligation of the school boards around the state to go back and say, figure it out from the
Because we don't like local
state.
decision-making, we like state mandates.
No, we hate state mandates. But if they didn't get it right, it's not fair for the boards of education to come to us for something that the state got wrong. And if you feel that the state, what they gave you in Kerwin, from all of this, doesn't cover what your needs are, then that's a conversation that to protect our taxpayers, that I think needs to come from the school boards.
But the state did not mandate career and technology education. We have a local option to say, we think career and technology education is
No,
important.
that is actually part of Kerwin, absolutely. It is one of the 5 categories. Might be called something a slightly different title.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lesher, I didn't hear your
Career
question.
The career and technology education, the CNA, because I was starting at the top. I presume that that's not mandated by Kerwin,
The CNA
the
program?
CNA program.
No, that is in response to providing a need that our county has identified for workforce development. And the fact that we realize in talking to our parents, our partners, that there's a need for students to go into this career field in order to, we have an aging population. And so this is a viable career pathway with certification at the end that allows our students to stay in county, fill a need, become taxpayers, and continue to grow the community we all live in.
And a workforce where we have shortages.
Absolutely.
ACE, is school doing the ACE program?
So the ACE program is we do have the ACE program. It is supported by community members who want to see students go into architecture, engineering, and construction. And so the ACE program provides a sustained program where students take the skills they're learning during their academic day, work with community members on developing projects and putting their learning from the classroom into real-life situations to plan for improvements in our community.
Like
So, yes.
sanitary districts.
We had 3 teams recently from our high schools compete at the ACE competition like 2 weeks ago.
We have plenty of internship opportunities in the county.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And I
Matter
do.
of fact, we have one with our planning department next year.
And if I could, Mr. Lesher, just regarding the CNA program, to share with the county council the success we're having so far. With our one instructor in our first year of implementation, we've actually submitted our proposal for the state to get our clinicals approved, which is a requirement. So we are partnering with the hospital and Hartfield's to get our students out into clinicals. So we have, I believe, 5 seniors who we will be continuing to work with in the summer. So they have the opportunity to do their clinicals and get certified so that they can go forth. Even though that's not part of our completer program, we are building that in to make sure that they're prepared.
That's fabulous.
So,
So council, I mean, there is the issue of Kerwin and the formula, and and apparently there may be an open question that council member Price asked, but the issue of the over-the-top ask, is that something that we want to maybe go through?
Start at the top?
Yeah.
So just so you know, they have not given the number, and this is from the executive director. B&T is discussing right now, and they're going into a House bill to accelerate it. So we really don't know what our number is yet. Because they messed it up.
So shall we go down the supplemental list?
I would, yeah.
Yeah, and give you an opportunity just to share with them, where you're coming from.
Joy said to me yesterday, can you tell us what's in the 1.8 million? I said, well, the 1.8 million is really, and I guess our numbers are, you're including, it's really, it's a change. It's 2.1 million, I guess, additional, sorry, we've got some national, so.
There's 1.8, there's 1.4, now you're saying 2.1.
Is this?
It's what I put on this what I put on this right here is the
Okay.
difference between 22 and 23. So last year, because you gave us 281,000 over, it's, now we're asking for 2.1. It's just kind of how my math worked out. But, what I was saying to her was, we built our budget based on need. We looked at our current student population, our changing demographics, and our changing needs within our student populations. We looked at the coming of Kerwin and all of the additional expectations that are being placed on us. They did spend a long time in looking at, Dr. Einhorn talked about this night ago, but they spent a long time looking at the outcomes of students in Maryland and found us falling short compared to other states in for a variety of reasons. And so they put in a lot of, lofty goals. And our problem is we're kind of coming from behind because, as you know, all due respect, I'm a taxpayer, property owner, et cetera. So I appreciate that we've kept our taxes low in that standpoint, but we've been in the lowest quartile of funded counties for 20 plus years, right? So we're not coming from up here where they, for example, just to compare us to Dorchester County. Dorchester County has a math and reading coach in every single school that is working with teachers, supporting teachers, helping them with job-embedded professional development, and helping them strategize delivering instruction to students. You don't have that in one
The difference is
single
Caroline
school.
and Dorchester get 70% of their funding from the state. We are in the top 3 of what you get per pupil dollars from Talbot County. We fund 65 or 70% of the budget. It's just not a fair comparison, so they have the state dollars to do those things with.
So, Ms. Price, I would respectfully just add that I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, we are obligated to educate students to the same standards as those other school districts, and to make sure that we are providing them with opportunities that are commensurate so they can be competitive within our school districts.
That's what Kerwin was supposed to do. And it's
Well-
very disappointing to find out that there is millions of dollars that's still needed over and above what is a very, very expensive program.
And again, respectfully, I'm not disagreeing with you on that piece, but that is outside of our purview. And our responsibility is to present to you a budget that supports the needs of our students. And right now, particularly in a time where we have a teacher shortage and difficulty recruiting and retaining teachers, even positions that provide this level of support to students in the classroom has a positive impact on teacher retention. So while I understand the perspective in which you're coming to this, I'm coming at it from a perspective that it's my responsibility to make sure every student in Talbot County gets an education that allows them to be as successful as
And it's just
possible.
frustrating that the boards of education weren't more vocal about what the needs were during the whole process, because when we got these numbers, we thought that was it, and they were huge. And I'm just still shell-shocked that it's never going to end. It's never going to end. That the board, the local school boards probably should have been much more involved in the process and vocal about. And again, it's water under the bridge now, but it's going to be a tough ask.
Okay, we've made the point, but let's just start from the top.
Yep.
So I think the best way to go through this would just be with this sheet of paper.
Starting off with salaries.
Yeah, just
Okay.
talk about salaries.
Okay.
And so the staff,
What page title or page number is
it's a two-page little supplemental thing I
Yeah, you're
sort
on
of
the
pulled
right- you're on the
together
right.
today.
Yep.
So the staff increases, we've got two things, we've got one main thing going on there. We touched on when we came to you and presented this in March, at the beginning of the month. We are mandated to give over a 5-year period of time, a 10% salary increase to our teachers. And this is putting us on this road. We have put in, we've negotiated, we put in a placeholder that's very close to what we've negotiated. We don't have a signed agreement, so I can't tell you exactly where we are with negotiations, but this placeholder in this budget is 5%. It is the equivalent of 5%. It is a step and a COLA that is equivalent to 5% for our certified teachers and 5.5% for our support staff, which are our lowest paid, for the most part, employees. Support staff might make $15 an hour, they might make $18 an hour. Typically, at any rate, it's everyone from a custodian to Dr. Griffith is
Okay,
considered
so I'm
support
going to
staff.
stop, go ahead.
No, where's this mandate coming from? My blank, is this county mandated, state mandated, there's nothing there.
The mandate is only on teachers, again, not the support staff, not the maintenance workers, and I need to see that broken out, because the Kerwin mandate is 10% salary increases for teachers. That was the
I'm
whole
aware.
point, was to get them up and above. So please don't wrap in a 10% increase for every
This isn't
position.
10%. This is 5.5% for support staff.
And the unfortunate part is the steps that we've given along the way do not count toward the 10%, strictly the COLA accounts. We argued, litigated back and forth to try and get them to include the steps that we've given over this period of time instead of, that's part of an increase, and they did not agree with that.
And
So,
again, 10% mandate is only for teachers, and I need to see that broken out.
Okay, well,
So we know what we have to do versus what we might want to do.
okay, so you,
So you're saying, right, my question is that this mandated increase is a state mandate from Kerwin?
yes.
So
Partially, to Ms. Price's point, the mandate comes around the teachers only, not the support staff. The support staff who drive our buses, who clean our schools, who keep our schools running,
So this year, the
Classroom
5%.
Classroom aides, teach- yes.
5% is for teachers, is covered in the Kerwin formula. The additional
No.
5 minutes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
It's not that it's in the Kerwin formula, it's that, it is anticipated in that in a certain extent, to a certain extent. We're required, there are two requirements regarding teacher salaries, and that is, we have to, between 2019 and 2024, we have to give a 10% COLA increase, and by 2027, we have to have starting teacher salaries.
Oh, you're right.
Sorry, are you okay?
I thought that was you falling behind me, so I'm sorry, slow to react.
So-
I care about you, Jessica.
Yeah, she's in diet. We lose a lot of things, we can't lose Jessica.
Can you go back over that again? You said you're mandated from 2019 through 2000.
To have given a 10% increase, and so
2019 through what?
2024.
24.
I don't know if I have my little cheat sheet to show
10% increase for teachers.
to teachers.
Okay. And this is COLA only, not counting steps.
Correct.
So Sarah, just so I understand, so would that be, so the 10%'s within that 5 years, so it could be 2%, 2%?
And we gave some smaller increases, so this year, the equivalent in here, let me think about this.
Is that where you're getting that
Is
5% from?
This year, the 5% that we're giving to teachers, 3.25% of that counts toward the 10%, and the rest of it is a step that does not count. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay,
It's,
so-
everybody gets a step
so-
increase, that's about a
So you're
1.75%.
covering, okay, and this is what happens, because you're throwing around a lot of numbers here.
Yeah,
So, and I'm not good at math, so you got to go slow with me.
okay.
So you're saying that 3.5% is mandated?
Mr. Pack, to be honest, we have, by July 1 of next year, we have a gap, and it's, I think we were around 6.5%. I need to look the exact number up. So could we give 0% this year and 6.5% next year? Yes. Is that going to help us with retaining teachers? No. So we've kind of evened it out. Like our plan is to give, what we've worked out negotiation-wise and what we think we can do budget-wise is to give a 5% increase to teachers this year, of which 3.25% would be counting toward the 10%. And then there's still a piece that we would need to give next year.
Okay.
And I think it's around 3% as well.
And then the other 1.5 is a step?
Correct, 1.75, yes,
Okay.
yeah,
And when you're negotiating with the union?
yes.
Okay.
So that's your 5%.
We negotiate with two unions. We have a union that represents our certified staff and a separate union that represents our
Okay.
Teachers.
support staff.
Okay, so then you want to give
Certified people.
another 5% to your, 5.5?
To support staff
Support staff,
because of
5.5.
where their salaries fall compared,
And so can we use the packet that you gave us to come up with the cost associated with that? So for example, would that,
Okay.
those expenses be the salary columns on anything that's not instructional? Does that make sense?
No, because
You can't do that?
no, the certificated staff are within pretty much two departments.
I'm sorry.
So if I can just kind of get my question answered. So,
Okay.
what does this 10% equal out to be in dollars?
You mean over 5 years?
For this year, you're going to give 5% to the teachers and 5% to the staff. What is that in dollars? Just wanna-
Okay, sure.
Isn't that the 1.882
It's
million?
1.882 million.
Okay, so that's what.
No,
But
yeah.
that includes the support staff.
Okay,
Yes,
you
it
need
does.
to break
I
that
said
column
that's a
out.
10%.
You need to see teachers
But
versus
that- but
support
that-
staff.
Okay, and then, so Laura's asking for it to be broken out as far as dollars. As far as-
Absolutely.
I was just trying to get to where this number's, okay, so this is that.
Because one's
10%.
mandated, one's not. I'm not saying that you're not going to give an increase to support staff to keep people on par, but they shouldn't be the same. The number one goal of Kerwin was to get teacher salaries up to a level to incentivize them to do that, so there'd be a difference between getting that extra education that it requires. And you cannot continue to lump them together. The first year, was it 2 years ago, Kerwin 1.0 or 0.0, when what we had to do was 3 or 3.5%, right? We didn't have to give any other increases, so we had to do the 3%.
3%.
And I remember sitting here, talking to the council members, saying that 3% is supposed to go to the teachers, and then they approved, the council approved 3% for everybody. And they're supposed to start pulling away. Yes, all of these other positions are important, but the number one most important position are the people who are actually teaching our children, and that's what Kerwin was supposed to do. So that's why we need to see what the mandate is, the 10%, and then when the salaries, and you said by 2027 the starting salary has to be a certain amount. That's what we need to see, and then to me the supplemental is everything else. The teacher salary increase is not supplemental, that's mandated.
Okay,
The
so
rest of it
that covers
makes sense?
staff
And
increase.
I'm sorry, at the same time, again, I do want to advocate for our support staff, because I cannot get children in front of teachers if I can't get them to school, if I can't get them fed, if I don't have instructional assistants who will help them toilet.
It's just a different
I
percentage of
understand-
increase.
I understand that, but when you look at the gap of what we pay our support staff now compared to other systems in the state, as well as opportunities they can have in our community now to go work at, no disrespect, but Target, and earn more money than they could
All I
working
asked for
for
was a
us.
breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely,
Again,
we'll
but
provide it.
I just feel I need
Versus
to,
consideration.
again, I just feel I need to lend support to the need for
Well,
our support
so
staff.
you're coming across loud and clear, and I think and I would agree with Laura, all we're asking for is that under staff increases, and I'm with you, it's just, if you're going to give the 5% for this year for the teachers that's under Kerwin, I'm with you, what is that representative of 1.8? And if you want to give a step to support staff for 5%, what is that representative of 1.8?
Okay,
That's
no
all,
worries.
just break it out.
Looking at the $51 million budget, does that mean that with 10%, so is the total salaries for teachers and support staff, is 18 million?
No, if you go, salaries are 41.4 million.
Currently.
But-
No, currently they're 38.1, well, our ask is 41.4
What are
million.
they, they're 38 what now?
38.1 million.
Total salaries.
Mm-hmm.
And you're requesting 41 point?
4, so that's an increase of 3.3. And that's broken into the staff increases of 1.882, and then new positions.
Okay, so can we go into new positions now?
Sure, there's a
Take a
separate
look at-
page
Yep.
following that one. So we thought the best way to look at these new positions would be sort of by what's driving their need. First, we have 8 positions we need due to the changing demographics of our student population. Dr. Einhorn talked about the great success of our Cna program, and so it's basically a 2-year program, is it 4 or 5 semester?
It's a 4th semester, and there's clinicals involved, and we are required to send an instructor with the students to the clinical placements, thus the need for the additional instructor.
Mhm. So that would start next year. Our EL population is,
This is early learning.
no, this is English learners.
That is definitely a Kerwin category, so that should be in there.
It is, and I don't know how to say it.
Special education, English language.
We're talking, but we're looking at this from, I'm not just trying to justify the $2 million additional, I'm trying to explain the total almost $6 million increase in our budget. Some of that we're asking from the state, some of that we're asking from you. So I'm not saying that the EL teachers aren't coming out of Kerwin. I'm just telling you what our needs are and what's driving part of that increase in salaries and wages. So part of that is those 2 EL teachers for our, especially, in the Easton area, we have a high population of English learners, and it's growing quickly. We've needed to add 1 sign language interpreter because we have an additional students that require sign language interpretation. Speech pathologist, I guess our caseload of students needing speech has grown. Special education, believe since the fall, when we were counted for our special ed population, we've added 70 students to our special education caseload, I believe, 70. So, and we're adding, let me clarify, we're adding a certain number of self-contained classrooms, at least one.
Yes.
Are we adding 2 self-contained classrooms?
We are adding a self-contained classroom for severely disabled students because of the number we have. It's outgrown the capacity for the 1 classroom at Easton Elementary.
Is that emotional and physical?
This classroom is particularly for our students who have physical and cognitive disabilities, so not emotionally disturbed. That would be a separate program, but this would be for students who, again, many of them some are tube fed. They need hand-over-hand support from the staff in the room. So there are students with significant disabilities.
And how do they get transported to school? Is the county responsible for picking them up individually? Okay.
Well, whatever they would need as required by their individual education plan. So that is determined by their specific needs, and then that plan is developed around those needs. And we are federally mandated to provide any and all services for those students from birth to age 21.
Just thinking, those vehicles that they're using, is that student staying at the school for the majority of the day? Or does it range?
I'm not sure. Are you talking?
Is it like somebody who's physically disabled, and is there a bus that would pick them up, bring them to school? They stay at school the full day?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, our students.
Or contracting out with DAC to stream income, because we have a need for that throughout the community around the clock. So
you
might be
go
an
down
idea.
the road of creative thinking.
Just
We
thinking.
can't build kill 2 birds with one stone by cooperating and talking.
Yeah.
We should always be open to that. So, yeah.
And for some of those students, they do require a nurse to be with them on the bus as well.
Yeah.
Or an aide.
Yes.
We have that with Alzheimer's folks getting to the doctor and stuff. It's similar.
Right.
Okay.
Another question is sort of similar to Frank's. Interpreter, which is sign language, is the students in that classroom, are they all deaf?
They're in a classroom.
They're in a general education setting because, again, we look for the least restrictive environment for students to access their education. So the sign language interpreter would go with the student to the regular classroom and provide the sign language so the student could get the instruction through the sign language interpreter.
I got you.
So the teacher's providing the instruction, the sign language interpreter is signing, so the student can then engage in learning with his or her peers.
And that teacher, basically, you try to set it up so if there's 3 or 4 kids, they come follow each other around?
As much as possible, but again, they're not clustered by grade level. So you might have a student who is in pre-K, and you might have a student who's in 8th grade or a student who's a senior, and so it's not like we have a group.
4 5th graders that we
Right.
can just,
It's tough.
Yes.
We don't have many students, so
Okay, I was just
I think
kind
we
of
only,
curious
this would be
about
our,
that.
I would this be our second sign language interpreter?
Yes.
So we only have, we have one, this would be our second one.
50% increase.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
That's
Big
good.
ask.
That's an
There you go.
excellent
It's actually
example
100%
of students who have all kinds of needs
Right.
in the classroom.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
justification for all that
exactly.
support stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Exactly.
That's good. Sorry, sorry.
No, you're good.
Sorry.
So the next three positions are related to sort of the increasing mental health needs that I think really have been exacerbated since the beginning of the pandemic. We're just finding the behavior specialist is sort of in response to that, and that would be someone who would be working directly with students, helping to assess students, helping to help teachers develop strategies to work with those students as they're, figuring out their triggers and their best ways to, circumvent those. The pupil personnel and social workers are helping families access, other services they might need to in their personal life, in their family life, to help them be successful in school, and
It's almost like you could do monthly
Right.
assemblies
Yeah.
on your emotions, how to handle them, how to cooperate, work together, recognize.
So currently, particularly in our elementary classrooms, that's a focus on a daily basis, and they've been doing that even when we were teaching virtually, making sure that they had time to address the social emotional through class meetings, through explicit instruction, using not only our social workers and our counselors, but also training all of our staff to be able to do that. So while they're in the room with students all day long, they can refer back to, here's one of the strategies we learned this morning.
This could be the next most resilient generation ever. It's the world's greatest generation.
And then finally, related to the blueprint requirements, we, and the 5 pillars of those, we need to increase our support of our special ed instructors with some coaching. The career ladder coordinator position would sort of serve a couple of functions along the recruitment and retention of a diverse and highly qualified staff, and progressing those teachers that we have up through additional training so that they can perhaps be nationally board certified and become even better qualified teachers.
This is like a provost position, professional development, advancement for teachers.
Somewhat. It also would help them navigate the very challenging national board certification process. That's about a 18 months to 24-month process. It's a really
And a $10,000 bonus, right?
it's a big bonus for them. It's a lot of work for them to put in, and then the reward should be reaped by the students who, have a teacher with a highly specialized
Do you
knowledge
track
base.
that, like for the ones who are nationally certified? Do their kids consistently have higher grades? Or do you put them in the honors classes, or?
Well, to be quite transparent, we currently only have 2 teachers in Talbot County Public Schools who are nationally board certified.
One's been
So-
for a while, right?
Yes,
Damn,
yeah,
yeah.
yes. And I do want to share that the career ladder coordinator would also be working with our instructional assistants, particularly those who are in early childhood. Built into Kerwin is a requirement that our instructional assistants who are serving our students in our P3 classrooms, pre-K and kindergarten must all have additional credentials in early childhood. And we are working closely with Chesapeake College, but that's a very rigorous process. And we have a great deal of concern that we're not going to be able to continue to staff those positions unless we are helping those paraprofessionals through the process of earning their AA degree or accumulating over 600 hours of experience that they have to have before they can be credentialed to work in those classrooms. So it's an issue for childcare as well as the public school system, but it's part of Kerwin that I don't think has gotten a lot of attention yet. But the career ladder coordinator would have to help coordinate that as well.
Okay.
Access, equity, and progress coordinator is a position that ensures that we're treating all of our students fairly in terms of identifying students for special education services.
Yes, and special programs. So what we do not want to, what we are not able to have is a disproportionate number of students from any subgroup who are being identified for special education. So the person who serves in this position works closely with every school team in the county through their MLIT process to identify what are some of the issues that are being seen that the student might need assistance with, what are some of the pre-referral strategies that we can put in place so that we're not moving students inappropriately towards special education and needing those specialized services.
If you have an IEP, does that consider you special education?
That is, yes, that is the document that outlines all of the services that you are entitled to in order to receive a free and appropriate education in our school system.
So there are a lot of contributing factors towards somebody's performance, and home life is significant when you're starting out. And so this is going to be a person that makes sure that our special ed kids are diverse.
No.
So prior to students ending up in the special education process with the testing and all that goes into qualifying a student, making sure that we have done all of the strategies that we can possibly do to ensure success, to make sure that we are supporting students before they have to go into a special education track. So working with teachers to identify, have they put in the scaffolding in their classroom instruction? Working with guidance counselors, have we looked at perhaps a 504 plan that might address some of the issues prior to going to special education? So just making sure that we are doing everything we can in general education to make students successful before moving to special ed.
But that doesn't equate to equity.
We're trying to make sure we don't disproportionately identify children for special education from subgroups. So we shouldn't have a significantly higher number in special ed from a particular subgroup than composes in our general ed, if that makes sense.
Mr. DeVillio, this is a position that has come through the special education department at MSDE as kind of a piece to make sure we're working with special populations. We did not create that title. It's just how they're looking at that progression from general education to special education.
Okay, because it's putting pressure on something that shouldn't be there. I mean,
Well, if it's
I don't understand how that.
If it's keeping students successfully in the general track, ultimately, that's a savings. Special education is going to be more expensive with the student-teacher ratios and so forth. I mean, you can just look at it from a dollars and cents point of view from that.
I would have a hard time if the state came in here and said, I line up all the kids with an IEP, I need to see what they look like, and then justify, and then want to review.
So that equity piece is about getting equitable access, and that pertains to all students. We are required by law to disaggregate all of our student information into every subgroup that we serve. So that is true. But this piece around equity here is about equitable access to programs, to learning, which is very broad in terms of equity within the classroom. If I am showing that I'm a little bit behind in my reading skills, and equitable access might be giving me more scaffolded reading to help me build my literacy skills, that's not a special education need, that's something you can do in general education. So it's about equitable access based on any need that you would have.
Okay, because I guess what I was thinking is, when you're looking at your student population, I would want to see everybody trying to be pushed into honors classes and honor society and things like, and gifted and talented programs. And then it doesn't seem like there's, it seems like we keep going back to the most challenged kids and supporting them versus taking the kids that we can challenge and making them better and trying to keep everybody even. And I have concerns with that because I want to help those excel who can.
I agree with you 100%, that the kids who are above average, that they don't get it. I mean, I know my kids have been graduated now for close to 10 years, but.
And I think if you look at our school systems now, you will see where there is that push. So if you look at our gifted and talented program and the request for an additional teacher here for that, it's because we are trying to identify early students
It's so
with
little compared
giftedness.
to everything else.
And we also build in our AP programs that we have for students, which are very robust at the high school level as well. And I would be happy to have a conversation with you about how providing what a student needs, because again, we are required to educate every child, doesn't mean taking from someone else.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and I understand that, where you're coming from. And I think I agree with you. I just want to.
And I'd be happy to have
Sure.
more conversation regarding specific questions you have around that and to.
Yeah, I won't hold
Sure.
anybody else up. That's fine.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we need coaches. I see that.
Okay. Instructional coaching. So
5 of them,
we have 8 schools, so.
and no coaches currently. Again, the coaching positions are necessary to ensure that all of our students are meeting the CCR standards and are making that progress towards being college and career ready when they graduate. And what's happening now is with the increased demands of the standards, with the needs of our students, having specialized professional development that helps support teachers' instruction in the classroom will help us meet that need. And again, this is an area where we have been woefully behind in comparison to our Eastern Shore counties that provide the support to teachers and thus improve student learning through those positions.
How would you relate that to a reading specialist?
That very much could be. It could be an instructional coach who is focused specifically on reading. So a reading teacher works directly with the students. They can only work with a small population of students, and a reading instructional coach can be going in and modeling lessons and strategies for the 3rd grade team in a school, who then can all use those effective strategies for all of the students in the classroom who need them. So it's really making sure that our teachers have the knowledge and skills and the specialty areas to provide that instruction for students.
I thought CCR was geared towards 10th through 12th grade.
It is, but the piece about CCR that's important to remember, it doesn't happen in 10th grade when students take those assessments in algebra and English 10. It begins when a student comes to us in pre-K, because the skills and the standards are progressive. So a student takes those exams in 10th grade, but if they haven't mastered the standards all the way up, they're not going to be successful.
So, I think you've already answered my question. So you're saying that you want 5 in every school, but you only have 2
No.
high schools? One in
No,
every
5
school.
in the district.
Yeah, 5 total. I
To-
said that wrong.
Okay.
But we only have 2 high schools where 10th and 12th grades are taught.
But that's for our instructional coaching.
Correct.
But she said it's under CCR. This is part of
What does a
CCR.
coach do? I mean, the teachers are responsible for getting our kids college and career ready. All these extra coordinators and coaches and it's just incredible. It's just incredible because I think we all came out pretty good out of the school system. What has happened in the last 30 years? We're taught math, English, science, and we went to college or we went into vocations. It's really unbelievable. All these extra positions.
So let me see if I understand. You're saying this bottom half of this bottom third of this page, which is the heavier lift, is at 816. You're saying due to blueprint curve and requirements, these 12 positions are mandated, needed, suggested, or what's the right verbiage I need to put on these 12 positions? Because you have them blueprint required, and as you said before, the instructional coaches, you know, CCR was for 10th through 12th, if I remember reading, making sure that they're career and college ready by 2024. So how is that for a pre-K kid or a first grader? I just don't see how 5 instructional coaches could be lumped in the CCR requirement.
Because that's one element of the blueprint. I mean, our other pillars of the blueprint, I'll let you speak. The other pillars of the blueprint include, that's college and career readiness is one of them, early childhood education, and resources to ensure all students are successful are 2 of the other pillars of the blueprint. There are 5 pillars to the blueprint. So there are 5 focus areas.
Okay.
Right, so perhaps, Mr. Pack, I didn't explain it well. When I said that the instructional coaches help support CCR success, it's because those coaches are working with teachers to identify and to model strategies that help improve instruction for all students in the classroom. And that begins when students start with us in pre-K, because every standard, as students progress through the grade levels, lead them to where they need to be CCR in 10th grade. So if we have students who have reading needs, which we're seeing now, largely due to school closures with COVID, students have intensive reading needs, and we have to accelerate those learning needs much more than we ever had before, because we've had some lost instructional time. And so it takes some very specialized skills in reading instruction that not every teacher has. Yes, they know how to teach. They know their particular content. But when you have students in your classroom who may be reading 2 to 3 grades below where we would expect them to be, there needs to be some immediate intervention that can happen in order to help those students accelerate their learning more quickly. The coaches provide that specialized instruction to teachers who can then apply those strategies in the classroom.
Okay. So the 1.4 that's on this page here that we just went over, where is that reflected on? No. Okay, no.
And then the 3.3
Yeah,
is to add up to
yeah,
what's on the
you're right.
page.
So let me see. It's a page.
Just FYI, I just got a message that this is probably obsolete. New enrollment numbers came out today. This is probably obsolete, is the message I'm getting. So again, I told you, we don't know what number we're starting from yet. It was supposed to be Friday. but then-
The enrollment numbers for comp ed may have changed.
The
I
2
think just
highlights
at
that
the state
I
level.
can't find, I was curious about, was Grow Your Own, wasn't that the Talbot County Public Schools?
Yes, Grow Your Own program?
Yes.
Yes, we do have that.
So do you still have that and still have where you're going out and trying to find teachers to come back?
Yes, so we have a Teacher Academy program as one of our completer programs, and through that we have a Grow Your Own program where if students come back and teach in Talbot County, we give a small scholarship for their college fees. And that's the hope to sustain a pipeline of teachers to come back.
And so where does that fall under? Is that just administration?
Fixed charges.
Okay.
It's part of sort of employee benefits, if you will.
And then similarly, I don't know what you call it, but the teachers can be paid to do clubs and activities and things like that after school. How has that fund been used over the last few years?
That, well, in 2021, in the fall of 2021, when we weren't really doing sports, there weren't, a lot of coaches stipends. We started some seasons, we canceled some seasons.
But no, I mean more like some of the club things that teachers can be incentivized to do with after-school kids.
Right, there's not a lot of money. I'd have to go back and see exactly what our after-school stipends are. There is some money, not a lot.
I'd be
for
interested in
after-school
seeing,
clubs.
like, over the last 5 years, what percentage of that has been used and how many teachers participate in that.
So in our budget book,
Which I
in
got.
our budget book, page 18, I've got sort of a 3-year look. I'd have to go back to before COVID, if you would.
Yeah.
Because in 21, which was a full COVID year, we spent $6,500. This year, we're approved to spend, or our budget includes $25,000. And then we've asked for $60,000 for next year. I'm trying to think what some of those increased
But if you could,
stipends
if
are.
I could see that before COVID, and then what percentage of teachers participate and how much of that gets used every year, I would be really intrigued in seeing that. 'Cause I'm always thinking of how to keep the kids involved in school, even after school, and learning around, and see if
It's
maybe that's not enough money, or,
It's not a large number of teachers. There's limited, and some of the programs are run through partner organizations. For example, at St. Michael's, we have SMASH, which is run through the St. Michael's Community Center. In Tillman, we have TIA that does after-school programming, and in Easton Elementary School, we have BAM, Building African American Minds. And also some of the kids were going to Neighborhood Service Center. And so it's not all directly from us. So they have those opportunities as well as the YMCA, et cetera. And, we try to partner with them and support them in whatever ways we can.
that would be really neat to see what those are.
Okay.
Council, everybody up to going through the capital projects now?
I have a question. So when we look at this is salaries only. What's your average benefit rate? I think what we need to know is what these numbers are fully costed.
Okay, so you should look at fixed charges. The benefit rate varies dramatically because if you have, here's what I can tell you. Our average health insurance cost per employee is around $16,000. A retirement cost is either roughly 10% for support staff to roughly 15% for our teaching staff. That's mandated. Those are the state retirement plans that we're in. And then we have FICA on top of that, 7.65%. So, to a bus driver who might be making $23,000 a year, their benefits may exceed their salaries or come close versus, a very experienced teacher who might be making $75,000, $80,000 a year. So it's really hard to nail down just a flat percentage. It does. I mean, I could give you an average.
I guess I'm just trying to, it would be helpful to understand, again, what the total cost for each group is.
Associated with the staff increases and the new positions, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so I can break down, okay.
She'll get that to Troy then, just so that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay, good. You good? So I think council, we can probably push on to the capital
Okay.
request.
Good.
And I think you all have that. This would be the one with the brown line down the middle of the page.
Yep.
Great. Do you have that?
No, but I mean, I have my budget
You
book,
do.
so okay, thanks, bud.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you.
And see over this, you can see that you just highlighted the new items.
Okay. So I need my notes anyway, so.
Okay.
Thank you. And Kelly had these in order of priority. I think our number one priority is paving the St. Michael's parking lot.
The priority list that she had given.
Oh, good, I guessed that right. Thank you. St. Michael's parking lot, number one. That was something we had thought about doing a couple years, and I think it was in last year's budget, at a much reduced cost, at a much lower cost than this. That was assuming we were just gonna repave a small piece of it, but it's gotten to the point now where it needs a complete paving, and I think got some contingency built in there for some, remedial problems like we ran into when we did the Easton High School lot. I think Kevin put a very small contingency in there for that. Then we are in need of some additional storage for things such as food service supplies and equipment. We're just running out of space. Plant operations, we're trying to buy cleaning materials. We've got, we just have some storage needs.
You would be shocked, even the Hogneck Ice Rink has a storage need. It seems like every department, and Black and Decker's packed with stuff that we're storing for people. This county has a
Exactly.
storage need.
And I think, I don't know if we currently have stuff out at Black and Decker or
Business center.
at the business center, and
It's not gonna be a business center
I'm
anymore soon
sorry,
either.
but I don't know if we currently have stuff there or not, but I know that was a concern at one point.
Yeah.
If we don't have that, then what? Now we're really up the creek, so.
And that's the pole building on this
That's,
list?
yeah, so we have space where we could put in a pole
So you
building.
can give us the priority number, you
Yeah,
said
and
that
that was-
one, the parking lot, the number one was the St. Michael's repaving.
Right.
Yes,
And this
number
is-
two would be the pole building.
And that again is something that we postponed from last year.
Exactly.
It was a request that didn't get funded last year.
Number three is the paving of the bus lot, so that would be sort of around, I think, where they want to build the pole building. So right now, I don't know if you've ever paid attention or had the pleasure of parking up at the school board office like we do. There's one very narrow gate that every bus goes in and out multiple times a day. Any other maintenance vehicles, anything getting in it. The shed that they work on our buses is right there. So what they'd like to do is pave that back parking lot. It's very difficult during like snowy times and things like that to clear the parking lot. So what they'd like to do is pave that and kind of create a loop around the back of the building so that there's a one-way, it's one way. They
But
can
you
come
got
in
two
and out.
different things, so you get the paving and then you got access road single direction.
Okay, you're right. So that
John
is,
was on this lot
it is-
paved about 10 years ago.
yeah.
That's a lot of paving with the stream right there and, the woods and everything. There's just no way to have a permeous surface there.
Well, it is
Or-
right, yeah, it's right, that's what it is right now. It's a gravel lot right now, and it gets messy when it gets rainy,
Yeah, I
et
remember
cetera.
this was on back on John's time, the paving of this bus lot.
It could have been, I don't know. Before my time, I know.
So then those two things go together?
They don't have to, they don't have to. That's why we put them in separately.
So then what's priority for?
The security fencing at White Marsh.
But you have a big ticket item you haven't talked about yet, the 1.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Just
Our
says-
board wanted to put that forth. They are interested in advancing athletics. They feel that for our teams to kind of advance to the next level, they'd like to put in some turf fields. They feel like it would be a possible source of revenue to be able to rent some of those fields out, to be able to start.
That's exciting. So that's been a concern for me with,
I feel like education should be the priority, and it is. When you look at all the fields behind the middle school, what's over at Chapel, those fields all look terrible. They're full of holes. I'm surprised more kids don't break their ankles in it. And it seems like it might be time for the Board of Ed to either turn those back to give them the Parks and Rec, work with a YMCA, somebody who can fundraise to maintain and use them a lot more.
Which fields specifically are you talking about?
All of them. It would make more sense to have a sports complex for this county to reduce funds, but then you'd have Parks and Rec using fields, and we have a problem with Tillman where we can't have the kids on the playground down there during school days, and so it's a change in the dynamic of thinking by having community fields and not just education fields. So they're looking at generating revenue by putting turf in and having, I guess they would let the kids play lacrosse tournaments?
So let me get this right. So we're gonna spend our capital dollars to put in turf fields, or if we do at some point, and then the school keeps the revenue, but we still have to fund the same maintenance effort in Kerwin.
If they can generate revenue, then.
I mean, if there's revenue generated, that should come back to the county if we're the ones who funded the capital project. That should not go to the
So
schools.
for this year, we have, the council to decide on these, obviously, to fund or not fund these items.
That was getting back to your point, Frank, that was a recreational study done. I think Preston may have that study, and they looked, and this came up in that study as far as turning this field into a turf field. It must have been about 8-9 years ago that study was done. You remember we did that study, that field study? And they talked about this on that field study, as well as putting the lights out at North Park, which we just did last year. We put towards some open space money to do that, the lighting of that park. So I know this was part of that study about 8-9 years ago. So
Worth taking a look at.
we were taking a look at it, and they were talking about lacrosse tournaments and soccer tournaments and rotate them around. You would play some games up at that. Maybe the championship game would be held there, and North Park would hold some games, and yeah. So I do remember being part of that study. So, but, yeah.
So that's good. So we've had the opportunity to have Sarah and Dr. Einhorn come, and this is such a big part of our budget, number one.
Sure.
Number two, it's such an important part of our budget. This has given the council the opportunity to go down to more micro levels and make informed decisions. So that's really good that you did that, and I think the council appreciate it.
You guys have done a great job bringing that to us and helping us understand some of these, difficult things that you have to work out on your end. We don't see your end. You're telling us your needs.
Right.
So, and I really appreciate you helping us, guide through that and helping understand what your needs are. If we can't bite off the turf fields this year, and to Frank's question about field condition, is there capital investment in the grass fields that needs to be done?
Be switching over to Bermuda.
I don't know the answer to that. We have normal field maintenance cost built
That is
into our
built in.
budget. Yeah, they're pretty minimal. I know Mr. Femi down in St. Michael's is really good about getting local donors to, help maintain that field. But that's the baseball field. There's still the soccer field. There's the softball field. There's the other sports, that are not Mr.
Like the Bryan
Femi's
Brothers
teams.
Foundation gave a soccer goal to Chapel, because they've got a soccer field out there, but both of the goals are in terrible shape, and still in bad shape. And so they put the goal over by the playground where the kids could use that field instead. I did have one question. The Cordova roof, is that coming off of this? Since
That's a future year.
But you're proposed.
I think that's a
the one
prior, where are you seeing that?
But 2024, but that's the school that's right now under the renovation or
I don't,
rebuild.
again, that's the thing I handed back to Mr. Steve.
Yeah, this is the CIP, and the 2024 is projected that there needs to be a roof program.
Oh.
That'll probably be tied in with
The renovation
With the
or the
renovation.
rebuild.
Right.
So are there any more questions for the Board of Ed? I know we have to probably go through and get some decisions out of council on this capital allocation. But are you good with both Sarah and Dr.? Great.
Council?
I'm good.
Great.
Are we doing council discussion on this now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll let them move along, and then we can do that, and then we can move on to, if council has, I don't know what the clock looks like. We're good. If you want to take a break for a minute, council, we can come back and we can take care of this and then do the supplementals.
Yeah, we do have dinner here, if you want to take a dinner break.
Or if you want to keep rolling, whatever you all think.
How much more do we have to go through?
I'd rather roll, take mine home.
No, you can bring it down. I did.
You rolling?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it if we keep
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah, let's just try to see if we can do this in the next hour,
Okay.
if we
All right.
can.
All right.
You know, get out of here by something reasonable like 7.
Thank you, ladies.
Is that okay? 6:37.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So in that case, do you want to walk through these items, so this, the capital
So-
issues? and-
So again, I had a lot to say, and this chart, probably obsolete. Numbers changed today. So we just still don't know what we're starting with. So I really am not prepared to make decisions on the schools at this point.
All right, we'll revisit it next week then.
And they were also going to break out the mandated versus the wish list
Okay.
on the positions. And I just don't think it's fair to go through those because we just don't know.
Okay.
Well, since I have Joy in front of me, I mean, I'm not trying to come any decision, just maybe some more clarification on my end. So, the original request from the Board of Education for 2023 was $45,856,486, correct? Okay. Then the debt service is $3,332,000.
Right.
Okay. So then their supplemental was the items we just went over, right? And it was 2.245,
So,
but I'm not seeing that totaled up anywhere.
Great, so
Hold on, Laura.
I'm tagging on to you what I pointed out. Their front page of the budget they presented to us said 5.5 new positions. This front page right here,
Right.
right? And all of a sudden, there's 23 new positions being asked for. This is not, what they went over today is not even close to what they presented us last month.
Well, they're still negotiating.
I'm just trying to figure out if up in this box here, up in this capital outlay and supplemental,
They were asking 5.5 new positions, and they just asked us for 23.
You think it had anything to do with that $4 million we got?
All that, 5.5,
So-
1.5 million, and they just asked us for $3.3
I'm
million.
just, I know you're jumping around,
in
okay, I
stuff.
want to catch up with
okay, I'm listening.
you. Okay, so let me just do it by holding the page up here. So on the worksheet here, right, the supplemental is
Hey, Ken, ask him to come up here.
609, all right?
Yes.
So,
Come-
and it
come on,
says
come on
in the
up.
explanation box is operating appropriations and supplemental.
Yep.
Now, we went, I thought we were going through that, we just went through that with these over here, with the positions and, but I don't see where's that total coming from?
You're right, because
There's
it
12.
says one blueprint implementation
Yeah, I don't-
coordinator, one. And we just got a request for 23.
Yeah, I don't see where we're getting.
But a blueprint, you just got it for
One of
12.
the reasons I wanted to see the staff positions fully costed is because I think it may give us a better understanding of what's in their supplemental budget.
Okay.
Right, but where did they come up with
Should be.
23?
I can't believe they're gonna hire a supplemental for a blueprint coordinator and pay more than we pay our county. Anybody.
It's related to some of the staff positions fully costed, plus it's also related to salary increases for other positions, right?
So I thought we talked about that over
And
here.
also, an increase in what they call fixed charges, which would be benefits. So,
So to be fair, February 16th to the council in your budget books, they do refer to actually all the positions in their request.
All 23.
Well, there's 20, actually there's 24 here.
Okay.
We'll have to go through really and figure out which one backed out. But in the letter, budget letter to the council on February 16th, all those positions were reflected.
yeah.
They were.
And they are in your budget book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Addendum to 5.1.
Yeah,
I'm
they're just
just-
broken out differently here.
I'm just trying to get to where the $2.2 million is coming from. And we just went through this whole exercise with them. I'm just trying to figure where that number is coming from. And just the salaries and the new positions alone, from what they just laid out, is 3.3 million. So where's that captured?
The numbers just don't match.
It just don't match up. I mean, I've done a lot of school board budgets before. I've never been this confused in my life.
Right, no, and that's a valid question, obviously. We can come back to you. I mean, I think at this point, to Councilmember Price's point, the numbers appear that they're gonna change.
Right.
Because of the challenges with the formula at the state level. Let us take a look at that. Let us take a look at what we've heard tonight. Let's clean it up a little bit and come back to council next week. And then get the council to make some decisions on what you want to do on the areas that we have the ability to make those decisions. You make those decisions.
I'm fine with that, because I'm certainly not ready to move on anything with them tonight.
But one thing, Coy, but one thing, I don't think we even waste time with a discussion until, like Ms. Price said, the figures are in.
Right.
Do we
No, I
know
agree.
for sure when that's gonna be? I mean, it's
Well,
like,
Well,
That's
probably
a
not,
challenge.
that could be a
They
challenge.
got
but-
enrollment numbers today, so the text from Michael was like, they
So we'll just
literally
leave it up
just
to
changed
you guys to
enrollment
give
numbers
us
today.
heads up.
No,
Give
that's-
us heads up.
That's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a conversation tonight about, what do we have left and how do
Right.
we get that done and still meet the requirements of you all adopting the budget.
Right, yeah, correct,
So,
yeah.
And do we, okay, and while you're doing that, can I get a breakdown, a separate, do we have a separate sheet for the debt service, the $3 million debt service? Is
There
that-
is one.
there's- Was that sent to us as well? If I can just get this 2.245 broken out, as to what it actually means, and the debt service broken out, because if you add those two together, you're talking about a $51 million budget. I don't know how you meet that.
Okay.
And what are these positions, I mean, can they prioritize these positions at 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s, what they can live with, what they can't live with?
And mandated or not mandated?
think they could.
And what's mandated was, yeah, because,
Right.
Okay, so our ask back is going, I get the first part of it, now you're moving to their position request, the 23 positions.
Yeah, what
We
can
want
you
them
live with?
to You specify whether they're mandated or not, and then prioritize.
yeah, because the way this is kind of highlighted here is due to blueprint, which is Kerwin. And then, I didn't appreciate the little spin about the CCR, because CCR is for 10 through 5. Now, I understand you want to take the next level is to go into elementary schools and middle schools and kind of track them along. I get that. I certainly get that. But that's not a part of CCR. It's
Right,
not.
and it's not due to blueprint regulations, I think you're right, I think
Okay.
it's just
So
amendments.
council, council wants us to go back.
Right.
And ask them to tell us about the 23 positions. Are they mandatory? Yes, no.
What's part you?
And then what your priority is
Rank
for
them.
each position. Rank the position.
Right.
Well, I think we do, like Mr. Pack said at the very, very beginning, they have nothing here that says county mandated, county request, and state mandated, that nothing's filled in.
Okay.
And I think that would help, don't you think, council? It would help
Three
us,
of you saying yes, so.
Yeah.
we'll
help
do
us
it.
understand this
Okay.
a little better.
So he's looking at the supplemental page.
This right here. Here.
And so it would be helpful, so they're going to prioritize the position first, right?
Okay, please.
We need to know what the costs associated with those positions are.
Well, I mean, I just did,
Cost plus benefits,
I
like
just
you
did
said.
the vision based on the number divided
Because
by,
otherwise you're not going to be able to, if you want to make a decision about.
which is why I did it this way. So if I divided the 8 into the 468 is roughly, I know that.
Right.
You know,
Some positions are more expensive than others.
I'm doing the cheap math. I know you do the expensive math. So, but yeah, that would help too. So you can say, well, we'll give you 2 of those, 1 of those, yeah.
So would it help, I'm just throwing this out at staff. Would it help, and it might not, to break it into two education, school stuff, 50 million, and us as 50 million? It's $100 million. Would it help to get the one side out of the way?
Vote on the county budget, set that, and wait for the school to.
I'm just asking the question. That's all I'm doing.
Because it seems like we run the county with what's left over from what we have to pay the schools. You know, and we can't.
Not
other-
necessarily.
well,
Well, it's a $6 million delta.
I mean, clearly it's 52% of our budget, so it's a huge item, and it's, much of it's mandated by the state, which I know is frustrating. And then there's the items that are not mandated by the state that they're asking to meet needs.
Right.
In which you work with them, and they were here trying to explain. And, I think we'll try to answer the questions you have with regard to their over-the-top request of the council, and we'll get clarity on what the state commitment is.
Right, so with the mandates, I know they say, well, the coaches, those 5 coaches, and they put it under blueprint. But are those 5 positions actually required under Kerwin, or is it just something that's going to help them along the way? So they really need to be very specific about them, and I understand the demographics, but that all should have been captured in special ed and English language learners, and there was something I was going to say, and what the increase in property tax is going to be. Because if it's another $2 million or another $5 million that we don't have, and I know we got a bump, but that's one-time money, I want to know with the school board budget, with the current property tax rate, and anything over and above on property tax, aside from what we can do for, say, the extra penny, which is on the county side, what does that cost? So if we're going to give them another $3, $4, $5 million, I want to know exactly what that is in property tax increase. And we're going to make it, I'm going to say it out loud, you're asking us to raise property tax 5 cents, what is that going to mean to the average homeowner? Because that's what they're asking us to do, is to raise taxes on people to pay for that. It's not a matter of whether we are being, I remember all these budgets and they get the people in the shirts and you didn't give enough and da-da-da-da. You're asking us to raise taxes. And if that's what the community wants us to do, then that's what we need to hear in the public hearing. You want all these things? Okay, your property taxes are going to go up $247. If that's what you want, then you come and testify in front of the county council that that's what you want us to do. It's not us being stingy, it's us having to raise taxes to pay for it. Because at this point, that's all that's left. There isn't money just built into the budget of incoming revenues, not stuff that's sitting there.
So, and to get back to your original point, I would rather not. I don't want to set the county budget without this. In my opinion, the Board of Education is an elected governing body that sets their own budget and then presents it for funding to the council. And so when I'm listening to it, I'm more inclined to listen to things where I have kids in the school and I have concerns in the schools. I see it, I know what's going on, and I address those concerns when I brought it up. And I kind of lead them down the path that hopefully they find the solution to it. And then there's also the side of fairness, inclusion. The teachers got off 3 Fridays this month for half a day for mental health. You guys sat in your office with COVID, with masks on, and you have not received a half a day. And their union negotiated that, and that's fine. Their elected body approved that. But I want them to also remember that we have great staff, that you're gonna have an implementation coordinator making $130,000 a year, and how many department heads make that?
That's fully costed, by the way.
Still.
So that's, okay,
Still.
but still, that's,
We wanted to do it.
that's almost offensive, I mean, it like drives our accounting office, or finance office out of here. They could apply and make that money. So, I don't want to set one without the other, but I do want to discuss them together.
My whole point, I understand, my whole point was to see if it helps the process and speed things up in the next several weeks, if we got the county side done. But at the end of the day, they've told us they want $6 million over last year. So they gave us a benchmark. So it's up to us backing off how much that's gonna
How
be.
much is that property tax increase, $6 million? If we did the whole thing?
That's all I was
Yep.
thinking.
I got you.
That's all.
We can bring clarity to that. You've asked for some more specificity when it comes to that
Right.
over-the-top spending.
Yeah.
Bring clarity on the other, and to Mrs. Price, to your point, yes, I mean, the state has given council the authority to pass on the property tax.
Yeah.
And Joy has given you, how many cents would?
Yeah.
Just did it, 7.5 cents. If we fully fund what they're asking for, it's an extra 7.5 cents.
And
We're gonna
that's your
go.
decision, council, whether you want to do that or not.
Go ahead, Mr. Pack.
Okay, I just want to have a
Let's
question.
just round it off to 7%.
It looks like this page here that they handed out, that came out,
That has to be redone.
I know, but I'm just asking questions.
It's crazy.
So it looks like I'm going to the last two columns on the right-hand side. The last two columns.
Okay,
So the last two columns,
MOE
Yeah, I know.
is much lower than what Kerwin is. It's
I-
just Kerwin column.
right, so the MOE, it looks
It's
like
good when we're done.
for Talbot County is 43,886,246. Then the Kerwin kick brings us up to 45,856,486, which is what we see in this requested number here.
Correct.
So they pulled that number out of here and stuck it in here,
That's right.
and they're trying to build towards this
And so-
45,856.
Right, so what was described was,
Okay.
the county requirement is.
So is our requirement,
It's
so
the higher of
it's the higher of the two?
Yep.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it's about.
So we got to build to the 45. So that is our new MOE.
Unless it.
Okay, I'm just saying, based on what we have in front of us
Yep.
today,
Right.
that's our new MOE.
You're right, you're right.
Yep. And you have to also not forget that the hold harmless of the student population, if there's 50 less kids or 100 less kids, we still have to give them the same dollar amount to make up for that. That's the second year in a row that we're doing the hold harmless.
Right.
So that the
But that's a
per pupil
smaller
amount-
number than the Kerwin number, so it really isn't relevant. The whole harmless number or the maintenance of effort number is smaller than the Kerwin number.
It is.
So-
That's correct.
So the important thing, I'm getting back now, then I'll lose this alone, Ms. Collins, I promise. So
Please.
getting back to my original question is that if our new MOE is 45,856,486, my original question was, can you break out this supplemental, this 2.2 million is what I can't find, and break out for the debt service, we gotta pay that no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at $48 million, not counting the supplemental.
Okay, so,
And before, I'm sorry, I lied, didn't I? And so these 23 positions, are they baked into the supplemental, or are they baked into the 45?
They're baked into both.
that's where we're gonna break out when we do the list. And we say mandatory versus not.
All right,
And
I
then we
need that.
rank them.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, I'm done.
So Joy, when you're done with all this, and, Angela and I used to talk about this, when they give a budget book every year, they give us last year and what they want. They have never done a budget book that compares like we do with a spreadsheet, 10 years, of seeing where it's gone. And we've asked for that, and every year their budget book is just a little bit different. So you can't actually hold up one budget book, and I did it one year. And I went through the whole thing. I went through like 8 years and tried to make some spreadsheet to make some meaning. And it's just really difficult because it's always presented a little bit different every year so that we can't figure it out. And it's just not very transparent. And when we're done with the budget, I'll see if I can pull some old stuff, but.
Okay. Well, I think this has been good. I mean, having them here and helping walk through this and then getting your questions, we'll get closer to where
One last comment.
you all need to be.
There's something called zero-based budgeting. So here's the things that they're identifying that they need to do. Do you ever hear a conversation of, well, because we have this new program, we don't need that program anymore? And you never hear that from the Board of Education.
To be fair, I did ask for that last year. They did show me they did give me a document. I keep asking for that. I know that you find paper cheaper every year or something. There must be savings. I had to ask a couple times, but I did get it. But you're right, it would be nice to.
Right, but with a $50 billion budget, you'd think they'd find more than $46,000 in savings. It's just exaggerating, but, you know.
Okay.
So, council.
Yes,
How would you like to,
move forward.
if you have a little bit more bandwidth left in you?
Let's press
Yeah.
on.
Okay, so we have this supplemental. Joy, you want to jump to the supplemental?
We can, and so I
Okay.
And then, I don't know if we're going to be able to keep them time to
We don't know
apply.
what it consists of.
Is it this one here?
I'm stretching
Okay,
it out.
let's go.
Okay, all right, so we reviewed
Mm-hmm.
through the library, yes. So we stopped, our last review, we stopped at the library. And as I recall, what the question related to the library was, because some of it was,
Open question on the employee salaries
Yes.
and on the
we wanted to
healthcare.
make sure.
Right.
They were, yes, we wanted to account.
Right.
That's where we're at.
So we're
Okay,
So,
Finance?
Okay, so the finance office is asking for an additional $84,000.
Aren't you glad to ask for that after the last?
This should look real small now compared to.
What is the noise? Yeah, the noise.
So, this is also related to our need for better technology in our group.
And that's the ERP.
Yes.
That's the
Yeah, and
important.
so, just so you conceptually
Enterprise
understand
Resource Program.
conceptually what we're, to help them understand, so, you know, we have a lot of years invested in the Munis program that is no longer really working well for us, but we have a lot of information in there, and we're continuing on with it right now because they need to. But as we bring this new system on, we're gonna bring it up parallel. It has to run parallel, and then we need to start offloading Munis into the new ERP system. So that it becomes a seamless transition. And this is the cost to do bring a consultant in to do the transition of the data.
So that won't keep eating, it's just a 1 year?
Yeah, that won't, this would not keep eating. This is
The 84,000.
correct.
Okay.
And no benefits associated with that because it's just a contractual thing?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, you're not gonna pay an annual maintenance? There's no annual maintenance
This
or?
is a contractor to bring the data over.
Yes.
That's it.
This is
We
just
already
help to get-
did the system we talked about.
This is people.
Capital outlay.
Just a subcontractor doing his work.
Right. If you recall,
But let's note that down, there's not gonna be an annual, there's no annual.
Depending on the system we go to,
Uh-huh,
there may be an annual
Oh,
maintenance. I
let's-
can't, but
Okay.
that's future
I'm
years.
sorry.
all right,
Let's be clear.
okay.
On your on the capital outlay request for the new ERP,
Mhm.
how many dollars was it? 250?
Yes, to the,
250,000. And then we did talk about whether we could look at options of how to buy that, or at least, over a couple of years, whatever. There will be a annual maintenance on that system.
Okay,
right.
Specifically to this request, it's for a contractor to just come and bring data over to the new system.
and the
Right.
training,
True.
and the training.
Yeah,
Okay.
Training goes into that?
Yeah, you
And
gotta,
so the
you gotta
training is
train.
not just for the finance group, it's.
Everybody,
yeah,
like we did
everybody.
with Munis.
No, everybody that's gonna be using your system.
Okay.
If I'm involved, we need more money.
Just so you know, the annual
We might need another
maintenance
20
agreement
grand.
with Munis is more than $80,000.
I know it is.
I thought he was grabbing his
I kept asking, what's the
They
maintenance?
don't let you anywhere near that. No.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, support.
Yep.
Okay, we got 3, 4,
Oh, yeah, I'm good, I'm good.
you're good.
And the personnel stuff, I see we took care of that before, okay. That's all
Yeah.
right, okay.
Okay. Next is county administration.
Oh, yeah, so this is, so council, and we're gonna talk about this, but really, as you know, one of your first efforts is retention and recruitment and workforce stability. And so I was gonna approach you with a package of items that would be addressed to employees. One would be, we have a tuition assistance program here. We have $8,000 a year we give to administrative services to administer this. And we're over budget every year. And people they're trying to get in and they can't get it because you're right. So I wanted to expand that this year as part of our, effort to build continuing education, offer continuing education for our employees. So we wanted to move that to that number, is that correct?
And so I think you wanted a total of 30, so you,
Yeah.
so the
Otherwise, it's
request is
26.
It's
So
plus, you're
26
plus
plus
26.
Yeah, okay.
I support.
So that's the first line, or the tuition line?
Yes.
Yes, the first one. It moves to a total budget of $30,000.
On the first line.
Claire, those, I guess it wouldn't matter.
So there's a certain amount reimbursable for undergraduate and graduate degree.
What about certifications?
So certifications, if by department, there's a requirement for certifications like DES. If you want to go to paramedic school, the county helps pay for that, and there's also funding, exterior funding.
Okay.
that helps.
I'm good.
Okay.
I fully support this. I think it's an excellent, anything that you can do to close the back door and keep people here and reward them.
Yeah.
I think it's an
needed.
investment in our workforce, and
Absolutely.
certainly, you take a person that comes here and you give them a pathway to better themselves, and it benefits them, it benefits the county.
And I would say if they leave within a year of receiving it, it should be either paid back, there should be something.
We have some rules structured.
Programs for that.
This would just increase the availability.
Do it.
Support.
Okay, so I just want to get my line straight here, Claire, I'm sorry. Because I'm looking at this one, that we started out with, and your request was for another 4,000 to bring it up to 26.
No, in total it's going to be 30.
Okay,
So
so,
the county manager asked for an additional flashing of that %.
yeah, I'm just want to make sure I get my numbers right,
So
so.
the county manager asked for a $26,000 increase to what was requested. So in total, we want $30,000.
So current budget was 8, and you want to now take it to 30,
Correct.
so
Right.
22.
Yeah, so the budget was
Okay,
HR, or Administrative Services, requested a $4,000 increase. And I
Right.
said you should make it, we should take it to 30,000. That's what I'm trying to get to.
22 over the 8, gives us 30.
30. I'm trying to get it to 30.
Well, if you compare it with the current budget, yeah, 30.
Just want to make sure I got my numbers right. And what's, okay, I'm going to go with that. What's the first, knowing that the administrative services reorganization, the 23,000?
Where's the,
Very.
I'm on this page right here. That first block is 22,000. I'm on it.
You might see that far.
That's why I have it up like that.
Okay,
So it was at 23,000.
Okay, so this is an old sheet, we sent you a new one. The reason that we sent you a new one is because we removed all the salary-related information that was on this. We already discussed those separately.
So let me talk about that.
Yeah. So,
You
The
good?
new sheet should be in the clip packet you got today.
Right, well, it actually is the sheet that we had used before, too, so, yeah, I think you move it over.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. Next is the HR, did we finish that? So it's the-
Yep, we're
The
finished.
next up is the Human Resources Information System that the HR department has requested. It comes in at about $52,000 a year. It's an ADP application.
So we use ADP for payroll and have done, and it's worked well. And we haven't used is the HR component, which allows us to manage our workforce better. It allows for employees to access their information, interact with it better, to manage their own stuff. And that's a module, an add-on module to the existing system.
This is leave, paycheck stubs, W-2s.
That part is already-
It's HR questions, you can call, it's,
Oh,
he was,
it's
yeah,
that
he
type
was
of thing.
saying it was, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak to it better, but it's more front-end HR management as compared to, what we have now picks it up from the traditional HR department as it moves over to finance. So we kind of have the finance and accounting side of it, make sure people get paid, more kind of a front-end human resource management piece that would feed the finance function. So we're kind of missing the front-end.
and we can't talk about this when we're doing the staff. Because to me, this is another person.
No.
No.
But it's supplemental support, it'll reduce the
I
time,
don't think so.
which, because I see that as an advantage with the change up that may be happening in there.
Yeah, I don't think that it will not require another person to run this.
Right. No, but I mean, it almost, it'll make their lives easier as if you're hiring another HR person and,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we leverage the, the finance side of it, if there's something new coming through, for example, COLA payment, that was an ad hoc manual routine that we needed some assistance in designing how to do it. So we have that reach back to ADP on the payment side, that, of course, get payment, and there might be the civil level support reach back for the HR front end.
Thinking of the staff in there, tenure, what could happen with retirement, I would support this. I think it'll be very beneficial, and I imagine it'll get used a lot.
It'd be a foundational piece to our HR.
I'll support.
Thank you. 3, 4, 5.
Cut them. Benefits.
You got next.
Okay. No, so we will spend a good amount of time next week. The next category, you'll see in here a placeholder for a rate increase for employees for fiscal year '23. We also have a placeholder for increases related to our healthcare benefits. Our plan is to discuss this in detail next week. That we're wrapping up the study that supports the salary rate increase. We have some good data on the benefits, from our agent, we have some good information on what our benefits, our healthcare benefits increase will be. But again, we're planning to spend next Tuesday.
We're not sure, we're gonna have a conversation.
You guys are gonna have, and come back to us. Oh, with us.
We're gonna, next week.
You're go,
Yes, we're gonna speak.
be with us?
Yes.
Okay,
We're gonna
gotcha.
have a comprehensive conversation around pay.
Yes.
And
Okay.
with our consultant and with our review.
Okay.
And it gets into the detail, so that we'll have a more appropriate session for that.
Okay.
And the only other thing that is on here, that I can talk about is that, and again, a few minutes ago, we talked about tuition assistance. I'm trying to build a package of things for employees to help us retain and recruit employees. And so we have a program that historically has been extended to public safety personnel. And we give them $5,000 if they purchase their home in Talbot County. And we put $30,000
You want a total budget of 50,000.
Right, so we currently have $20,000 set aside, and so this is one of those low-cost, high-value offerings to county employees. We haven't used the 20,000 every year. We've had 2, 3. We'd like to extend that to all county employees and raise it up to 50, I thought.
Yes, in total.
Yeah, raise it up to 50, and I'm not sure, and then cap it.
Right.
Cap it at no more than 10 per year for the 50,000.
And what's the clawback, if you will? If they don't stay here and they bought a house, they gotta
Yeah,
get it
I'll have
back?
to get back with you on the criteria around that, but we do have some criteria about that.
'Cause that's a little different than sending them to school.
Yeah, I think Queen Anne's is 7 years.
I think we have 5. I think ours.
So explain to me that you haven't used the 20 in several years, right?
So this, yes, currently eligible for this are corrections, paramedics, DES, and law enforcement.
I'm just kind of curious, so if you haven't used it, why do you need to go up 50?
Because, well.
He's gonna extend it to more
They've been 30 and
employees.
expanded. I mean, the assumption is we're.
I got you. I'm with
A
you.
lot more people.
I'm with
And then
you.
just from a budgetary perspective, want to park a little bit more money there.
I got you.
If we don't use it, that's fine.
I got you.
I feel like you might get a little bit more bang for your buck at 7,500 per person, because I'm thinking about the first-time home buyer closing costs, and they're probably gonna ask for some from the seller, but I think 7,500 would be a little bit better cap in that 200, $250,000, $300,000 range house.
Well, and that may be a good idea. I know that the money comes back into our community.
Yeah.
If we get them to move here, they take their paychecks and they buy their groceries, they buy their gas, they live in the community.
And they step up. They'll keep the house for 5 to 10 years, sell it with the equity, and buy the next bigger home. And that for the people that are always saying, you can't afford to buy your first home here in Easton Village, and you're not supposed to. You know, nobody steps right into a $500,000 house, but this will allow the individuals to get to that point.
You know, it might not hurt to see if David could maybe print out council, so something like data on how many new employees have come through the year, like this year, how many new employees we've hired.
Well, how about just in general,
Yeah.
of our county workforce, how many live in Talbot County? I think you probably have that.
Might not hurt for him to
easily, right?
work, well, not necessarily, I just really, we're talking about new hires and stuff like that, so do we hire?
Not necessarily.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, this is any employee, if I've been working here 10 years and I want to move to Talbot County, I would be able to benefit by this.
So I'd like
And
to
we
know
would
how
want
many
to
already
move
live
them
here.
Right.
But, so we can get you as much data as you want to decide on this, but I mean, this is something I think that would be.
I think
I
like it.
support the
another
50,000.
component
I like it.
To
All right,
us.
looks like you got
Yeah, I
support.
like it.
Yeah, but I'm not
Yeah.
so sure about going up above 5,000 at this point. I'd rather,
I was thinking of 10.
Okay, so
But then
how
we only
many,
do
so how
5
many
people.
votes do we have for 7,500? Now, for 7,500,
Got a coffee.
well, but then we're capped, and you can only
We are
have fewer
capped.
people.
Yeah.
you're capped at 50,000, I'm asking for 50,000.
Let's do the budget figure now, we can argue about the cap later.
Okay,
But you're approved up to 10, so you can do what you want, right?
you're gonna give me my 50,000?
50,000.
Yes.
And we'll work out the details.
There you go. Let's
Great.
do it.
Yeah, I want to see how many people are going to participate before we change the amount.
All right, thank you very much.
There you go.
Joy.
Okay. We're recycling. All right, total increase is $77,000. Part related to the increase in tipping fee. That the request is $55,000, and then $22,000 related to the increased cost of maintaining them.
Well, we don't have a choice on this one. If
We
they-
do
they-
not have a
Right,
choice.
I mean, so this is like a
Do we have support for the no choice?
choice.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, Public Works. The software fee, the AutoCAD software fee is increasing by $3,500.
Look at that.
Come on.
Uh,
All right.
There you go.
Okay.
Right.
I approve.
We're good on that?
I mean, again, is it no choice?
Yes.
If it goes up, it goes up.
You gotta pay them, they shut you off.
That's right.
That's right.
You can run,
They shut you off.
run old AutoCAD.
I mean, to me, those two things shouldn't have been in our supplemental. They should have just been in the line
They
items as a higher thing, not for us to approve.
So again, we asked for a flat budget, and anything
Yeah.
over, they had to just.
This lets us recognize where all the new and increased
Yeah,
costs
that's
are.
true. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Next is animal control. And so when Heidi came to describe what she needed, what she said was that she held her costs flat, because that's what we asked. And then she was asked to go back and let us know what she needed to support her organization. She came back with $32,800.
Is that an 8% increase in salaries or something else in that 8%?
No, the 8% is related, I'm sorry.
Various costs.
Yeah, it's the rate increases, like the electricity, I believe she wrote to us.
Next year, we're gonna be all like,
Yeah, it's in her,
We won't be here.
It's in her book, right? I mean,
Her
it's
letter.
in her.
You're all gonna be here next
She
year?
did,
No,
she did, right.
happy to come back and comment. Just kidding. No.
Let's see them again.
It's,
She's been phenomenal throughout the year, so I'd say, Pat,
Yeah,
she's been great, so I mean, you know,
You asked her,
That's right.
yeah,
you asked her to
let's,
come back
I
on
think we
Tuesday.
should support her.
This is it.
Yep.
This is it.
I support.
Okay,
Yep.
we have 1,
Yep.
2, 3,
Go,
4.
next.
No,
No,
we have 4.
32,000.
That's a huge increase.
I'd rather it go to teen court.
Joy?
She was able to do a flat budget. I know they do some amazing things.
She came in and made the case for, even though she presented the flat, submitted the flat budget as instructed,
Okay,
she
they
didn't
do have-
understand about the supplemental. She came in and made the case for why she needed more
Okay,
funding.
how about 16,000?
Joy, you want to go through her request?
I mean, it doesn't have to be unanimous. You got a majority.
Okay.
Good, go,
Thank you.
yep, yep,
Joy,
upper shore
next
lane.
item.
Y'all don't want to consider not
Yeah,
doing the
we're going.
entire thing?
Okay. Okay.
Upper Shore Aging, right?
Upper Shore Aging.
All
Total
right.
increase, 83,250. Have a new staffing plan, which asks for $50,000. Salary increases included are 18,250 and $15,000.
Aren't the salary increases at closed session personnel?
Should be.
Could be.
So if you want to address
So
the.
there are a couple of new positions in here is what's driving this. And basically, they've got an executive director who's got 16 direct reports, which is untenable. And they've got a staff, and he's leaving. So the next person doesn't need to get stuck with that problem. And they've, even without him leaving, they had come up with this plan that just is a more sensible, more responsible management plan.
Well, we need to talk about the salary increases and stuff as part of our personnel closed session.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
But the staffing, okay.
But the initial new management staffing plan, I would be willing to support.
That 50,000.
Yes.
And that's a delta between what they're paying now and what it would take
Right,
for the new
right.
staffing plan.
So you,
And they did ask for 50,400, so we're only giving them 50 to make them work for it.
you also have a blank line, you
I
have
know.
It says
You have that
senior
15.
volunteer program.
senior volunteer program.
This is a county 20% match for their, they received a 75,000 grant from AmeriCorps to launch a program in Talbot last year for a retared senior volunteer program. We need a $15,000 match from the county to get an additional 75,000 for this year.
I'm good with that.
One vote for
Yes.
that. We got 3, 4, 5, we got the 15, okay.
Okay.
What about the other 2 items? They're not appropriate for this session?
Personnel, right?
Are both of them personnel?
No, I thought we said that only.
I thought we said the 50 was good.
50?
Yeah. we said
50's, we've approved that.
Okay.
We approved the 50, we approved the 15.
So we'll take the other, I think, okay, all right.
Okay. Yes. Ag extension. They're asking for an additional,
This has
That's
to-
our match?
This has to do with
Hold
the
on.
cost of living.
yeah,
That's county match.
Unfunded mandate, I approve.
but, yeah.
You're gonna do it, what are you gonna do? It's your match, you gotta do it, right?
Yeah.
Good choice.
Okay, we're good. that takes us to the supplemental thing. So, George, do we want to call it here, and talk about a discussion about what it look like next week, what your availability is, or do you want to press on with any other business?
So we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday.
Yeah, I
Call
got,
it here,
I think we
call
need
it
to
here.
talk about.
yeah, I'm not gonna be able to stay as long.
So how, do you want to do any more tonight? Or
I'm
are you
good.
good?
How was the Maria Health Department, was that part of the school?
What time can you do
So
Thursday?
I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Can you go
Somebody
4 to
asked,
6 or
Yeah.
3:30, 4 to 6?
I'm sorry.
So I won't be with you Thursday.
But that's
Jessica
good,
will be.
that's good.
Say again?
That's good. I will not be with you Thursday, but Jessica.
How's everybody at 4 to 6?
I can't, Thursday the 31st,
4 to 6?
I'm good.
I can go to 5.
You want to do, how about 3 to 5?
3 to 5, I can do that.
I can do whatever.
What do you think?
I can-
3 to 5?
Yes, I can go later too.
Would you like a couple hours or just, I'm just asking?
We're talking about Thursday, they're talking about changing it from 3 to 5. I don't know, Laura, would that work for your schedule?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Well, I have to be virtual. I won't be
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
So as long as I can have a virtual option.
And what will we be doing Thursday, 3 to 5? CIP?
On Thursday, we plan to do CIP.
Okay.
We wanted to talk about the
Call.
other enterprises,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, that'll take care of that.
Yeah.
That should be quick, you can do that in 2 hours.
Is that gonna be open or closed?
So that will be open, but we, next week, we really need to start scheduling a little more time. And I'm looking back at the notes we had, we're scheduled for Tuesday, April 5th, but just from 4 to 5. So I'm thinking somebody must have had a conflict later that evening.
What?
Now we're back to
Tuesday.
Tuesday, April 5th, which is next Tuesday. But I would really like to get a big chunk of time where we can have the consultant come in and really dig down into some of these salary.
Yeah, I don't have any other,
numbers.
I don't have any other conflict
It
on the
wasn't me,
5th.
I'm good that day.
I'm good to Tuesday.
Are you
Tuesday's
good?
Are we talking about an earlier starting or a later
Well,
run?
so
Later.
Yeah,
that's
it's
my
only
thing,
seven
if
for
we,
hours.
either can we go from, plan on going from 4 to 7? Or
Yes.
can we start early, 4 to 7?
4 to
Does
7
that
works
work
for me.
everybody?
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
I'm good
That's
Tuesday.
good.
So we're not meeting with Board of Ed next week. That got
Correct.
canceled.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yes.
Yes, that was it.
Okay, so
You're
the
so
Board of
smart.
Education, they asked to cancel that meeting, they had
Right.
conflicts. So
Okay.
they asked to cancel it, I said, well, let's just
So
get
let's
through
use the
budget
time.
and get it.
Use the time.
So 4 to 7 on the 5th?
Yes, and that will be a closed session.
Okay.
And we'll bring the personnel.
I can even hang out a little longer that night if you need to.
Okay, terrific. And then I think we're gonna need another day next week as well. Could people meet on Thursday, April 7th?
Yes.
No,
No.
no, I have 3 events on 7th.
Okay, what about if we met on, is Wednesday too fast for you, Joy?
We'll do Wednesday. I don't-
Can people do Wednesday, April 6th?
Back-to-back nights.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it too much for you?
Poor girl, she's working all weekend long right
Well,
now.
well, we
might
just
have to
added 2
Friday.
hours to Tuesday, so maybe we don't have to.
Yeah, I could,
So,
I could do the 6th.
The issue is the following, we need to finish up.
Right, because the budget's scheduled for introduction on the 12th. Now,
Right.
I'm getting the sense that we might need to,
We gotta get.
I can go 3 to 5 on the 6th.
All right, so we're doing Tuesday and Wednesday then.
And I can go 3 to 5 on the 6th, 3 to 5 on the 7th if you need to.
and
is
this
that good
7th.
for you?
3 to 5?
3 to
Sure.
5 on the
Very
6th.
positive look.
Laura, do you think that would
I
work
gotta
for
leave
you?
at 2.
Yeah, 5th and
Wednesday.
6th.
Most of the
7th and 8th, yeah.
Budget 3.
And then we'll slog through this.
Bring your other
To the
computer.
edge.
Yeah.
There you
And
go.
then, I just want to point out that the meeting with the board of Chesapeake College and the supporting counties, so that meeting is going to be rescheduled. We're working on dates either April 21st.
That's after we
or
introduce
May
the budget.
I'm sorry, what's our time on the 6th?
3 to
We're
5.
looking at
3
3
to
to
5.
5.
All right.
So we had 2
How can we
counties
do
that
that?
couldn't get a quorum, Talbot and Dorchester.
Can we find out what we're actually going to be discussing? Because we all have the mandated increase based on our population. Right, why is there a purpose in taking 2 hours of our time to do that? If it's if there's no, that's why I asked.
Because it's a requirement.
Okay, so then let's just do it virtually and knock it out in 15
They
minutes.
are willing to do it virtually.
Okay, yeah, let's just, knock it
But
out
we
in 90
couldn't,
minutes.
we couldn't do 7.
Still wasn't
Right,
a quorum.
still couldn't do a second, but.
Okay,
So it's
and,
gotta be rescheduled, but you can still attend.
but you sent a new date for that?
I did send out a tentative date of April 21st, because like Laura, I agree, May 5th is so late, by that time people are.
Yeah,
at their
that works for me.
hearings.
April
21st, I don't know exactly what time, but I think probably 6.
It is on, it is, the tentative time is 6.
Is that around 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is Michelle did that email about the hearing the council's team meeting. What do you call that?
Proxy.
All we need is 3 at that count. I may not be there.
I think my first year we only had 3 of
Yeah, all
us.
you need is 3.
It's not on the
You just
7th,
get-
I can do that.
I mean, if there's just, if
It's
there's
not
not,
objective,
right.
so wait on
The
me.
question is, we may have the ability to do a proxy, like you carry one councilman will carry 2 others.
All I want to know is from the other counties, do they plan to bring up anything controversial or not, or are we just approving enrollment?
Yes, okay.
Well, you never know. Sometimes somebody throw one.
I do know, Laura, that
Yeah,
while the
Larry.
counties are together, there has been some talk about the Witsit Center. The Witsit Center is closing. That is the only drug treatment facility on the eastern shore. That is a concern that some counties have expressed. Additionally, I don't know if all the council members got the same email you
Right.
had gotten about,
Correct.
from Jake Orvan about requesting an allocation to do
Planning.
planning, something. I'm not-
Yeah, if you want to forward that to the rest, I didn't want to do that myself.
Okay.
The email that I got from that guy.
I thought we just give it to Miguel.
Mhm.
I mean, that ties into his strategic plan. Of course, this fellow's on a multi-county, but he would be. the
And I don't know
one
why
to-
he only picked 3 counties.
I don't either.
As
but
opposed to all
I was
five.
thinking to give it to Miguel and have him
Yeah,
contact
cool,
him.
sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Julie had.
That's okay, I do have something, and thanks, Frank, for reminding me. So we had, the last time that we discussed supplemental requests, we had an open question for Maria, our health department. And so she responded to us.
Is that piece maybe you printed out?
Yes.
You wanted to know what types of nursing staff positions she wanted to hire.
Right. Right.
So, she says is that it's an RN and a CNA. The RN is their current RN, is covering 3 schools. So they want to hire 1 RN for St. Michael's
Mhm.
and 1 CNA for Tillman.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The costs are, she broke down the salaries for you, if you're interested.
Thank you.
So will you have that in the slip package?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it should be in your packet.
That's in the packet.
So do we support this?
Yeah.
Well,
Or do you support this?
I just don't know where it belongs. I don't know, I'm not sure which budget it belongs. It's the same thing as kind of the school resource officers.
Well, that's
So this
that's
was in the health
department.
department.
Right.
Because they, like what Dr. Ironhorn was saying, they sub a lot of that stuff out. So this is one of the parts they sub out to the health department.
Right. And that was, we needed to get,
Yeah, they sub it out.
we need to get clarity from council whether you support this portion. It's the only hang-up you had in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we agreed we needed to do it. There was some open question about where it needed to be funded, but I thought we were headed toward a consensus that we didn't want to put it in the school budget because then it becomes part of.
Okay,
Don't want to put it in
I'm
the
just
school
still not convinced that we need
Maintenance
an entire person for Tillman. There's still just not enough kids there.
It's a CNA. It's not a full
I understand, but
nurse.
it's full-time, but it's still full-time. And I just don't know that you need a full, I just don't know.
But you know what? That's a long drive when somebody got a busted nose.
I guess the Chop Tank
That's
partnership.
a long
It's not that
Yeah.
far from St. Michael's,
That's a
though.
long drive. Somebody got a busted nose. Yeah, 3 years.
You have 1 RN already covering 3 schools.
Chop Tank Health was gonna have a,
Choptank Community Health, you asked if there was an opportunity to contract that service?
well, no, I thought Chop Tank had a doctor's office in the school.
Say, and White Marsh.
No, I thought it was in Tillman.
But the children?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what, they were operating out of Tillman, you're right, Frank. I remember when I was on the board with Sarah, they were doing,
Kids?
yeah.
For the community.
I don't,
So this is CNA for.
I don't know whether they kept it open though.
Yeah.
But you're right, they were down in Tillman for a bit. I don't know whether they're still down there.
This ask is.
Yeah, you gotta have it, because you got kids at school that have feeding tubes and food or drugs that they have to take.
Yeah, oh yeah, I support it. With my questions, I support it.
Yes, yeah, you have.
Four. I have four. Just four.
Yeah, I would just like to see them have the ability to float as well. I mean, obviously, got one RN for the whole St. Michael's Elementary, Middle High School, which is all in one campus together, which is a lot of work for one person. And then you, again, I understand it's a CNA as opposed to an RN, but for a school with 100 kids versus something that's got 1,200. I would like the ability for these people to float around.
So we can send that message back to Dr. McGuire that, he's one concerned that we want that person to be able to float the properly and not sit around.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Copy it. 4, 5, we got 5.
4.5.